मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं।
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Good morning. You are watching NDTV special coverage on the US election. Good morning, India, but good evening, America. The world's eyes are fixed on a moment that will define the future of America and perhaps the world. As the 2024 presidential election enters its final hours, the vote count is underway and the stakes could not be higher. It's a showdown like no other. Donald Trump, the former president, seeks to reclaim the White House for a second time, while Vice President Kamala Harris stands as the Democratic contender, aiming to break new ground and become the first female president of the United States. The race is tight, the battleground states are crucial, and every vote counts. The outcome, viewers, will hinge on a handful of key districts, with both sides bracing for a long night ahead. Will the country return to Trump's vision of America, or will Kamala Harris rise to lead the next chapter? These are the big questions. The tension, you can imagine, is palpable. The stakes are unprecedented, and the world is watching. Stay with us as we bring you the fastest updates, live results, and expert analysis on what could be a historic night for the United States of America and the world. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. First, US poll election results begin trickling in from Indiana and Kentucky, while voting continues largely smoothly across the rest of the United States of America. Voters are worried about election violence. Early exit polls indicate just under 3/4 of those asked said they felt democracy was very or somewhat threatened in the United States, and about 7 in 10 voters in this current data were actually worried about violence as a result of the election. About 10 polling locations in a handful of Georgia counties will stay open late due to non-credible threats that briefly disrupted voting. Well, the first polls are closing in Indiana and Kentucky as the United States enters the final hours of voting in this election. Voters say democracy and the economy are the most important issues informing how they voted in the US election, early exit polls suggest. But at first blush, the opening round of exit polls aren't too surprising, many would say. But Patsy Veerakuswara joins us to testify what's happening on ground zero. Patsy, what does the mood indicate? The economy and the state of democracy have emerged as the two top issues for American voters this year?
Well, of course, other than economy and the state of democracy, there's also the issue of immigration and abortion. Immigration is very important for Trump supporters, while abortion is a very key concern for Harris supporters. Right now, behind me is the Harris headquarters election watch party tonight, where in a few hours, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, her VP pick, will come and hopefully celebrate with her supporters. As you can see, people are starting to trickle in. Harris herself is right now having dinner with her family, a private dinner, and won't be seen until a couple more hours. Nevertheless, the campaign is saying that they are confident they're going to keep on focus to see this process through. I think you mentioned some states have seen results trickling in. There's about 6 states where polls are closing shortly or around 7 p.m., just a few more minutes from now. And then we'll start to see the results coming in from several states, for example, Florida, Georgia, and other states as well to follow. So definitely a lot to look out for tonight. But right now, the mood here is starting to feel celebratory. I don't know if you can hear the music behind me. This is them checking the sound. Just a few minutes ago, there's the singing of the national anthem. So it's going to be a long party, but how long, we don't yet know.
Well, thanks so much, Patsy, for joining us from that location. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as things get fast and hot and moving. For Republicans, as Patsy is highlighting, immigration joined the economy near the top of their concerns, an issue that hardly merited a mention from Democrats. But for those on the left, abortion rights along with democracy were much more important. It is a bit of a surprise that the economy wasn't a dominant top issue for American voters, given how much of the political debate has actually centered around the post-pandemic spike in inflation. But it could be, as analysts point out, because there were some Republicans also worried about the state of American democracy, albeit for very different reasons than Democrats. Of course, these exit polls are rough data points, and that should not be treated as gospel, as we have mentioned, given extremely stringent health warnings. But the real verdict in this election is yet to come. 7 swing states will decide whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump is sworn in as the next president of the United States in January. And their polling averages are all within the margin of error. In fact, in an election this close, small constituencies really matter. Well, we have William Denslow joining us now at the moment. William, it's going to be a busy night for you ahead. What is the mood indicating, and what are American voters most concerned about this time around?
Well, I'm here at a Trumpsters event around 15 miles or so from Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's primary residence here in West Palm Beach, around 10 miles or so from the convention center where Donald Trump is expected to address his supporters a little bit later this evening on the East Coast. And this Trumpsters event is a group that meets around every week of Donald Trump supporters, Republican supporters. And as you can see behind me, this party is just getting started. The band has just started to play, and it's certainly a buoyant mood here at this party. Plenty of optimism that Donald Trump can reclaim the presidency. That optimism is further fueled by comments made by Donald Trump himself at a polling station shortly after he cast his ballot along with his wife Melania here in Palm Beach a few hours ago. He said they are doing well everywhere. He said that his team is very confident. For Donald Trump, he said the key issues in the minds of his supporters: immigration, border security, and that of the economy.
Economy, immigration, inflation have emerged as the top issues that have been echoed amongst many states in America. In fact, many political watchers assert that the argument that Harris has underperformed tends to actually rest on 2 different charges: that she's played it too safe when it comes to policy issues, and that she's also played it too vague when it comes to issues of economy and the immigration. We also have Kate Fisher joining us at the moment. Kate, the national environment in the United States in general, is it one with all the ingredients for a Republican landslide and a conservative cultural rebuke? What have you been able to pick up on?
Well, I'm here in the center of Washington, D.C. at a watch party full of Kamala Harris supporters. They're actually queuing up out the door to get in here. The TV screens are showing the American networks. The people here optimistic that she has a chance of making history and becoming the first, not just woman, but Indian American and African American woman to become president of the United States. After a hectic campaign schedule, of course, she only became the nominee in the summer. She spent today calling into radio shows across those swing states, which are the ones that will determine who becomes the president. And then she went to a phone bank here in Washington, D.C., picked up the phone and talked to some voters, persuading them to head to the polls for her. I just want to show you that in this bar here in Washington, D.C., they're giving you a map of the United States, and you can color in with your crayons when each state goes to which color. It is so close, it's impossible to know who is going to win this yet, but certainly the people here are all hoping it will be Kamala Harris.
Well, let's hope that map that they have to color in doesn't look split between both blue and red. Americans have been quite excited about this entire election and the run-up. We have seen people have been tied between both sides, but they've also been quite vocal and upset with the direction the country is heading in. This is what we've also been able to pick up from different polls. Republicans, though, seem to have an edge in national party identification. In fact, I must inform our viewers here in India as well that comparison to the last few decades, more people in America are actually identifying as Republican than Democrats as well. And pollsters have said that this may end up benefiting Donald Trump by the end of this day, perhaps week, if it takes long to declare the election results. But Republicans have an edge in national party identification, as has been pointed out by pollsters. Also, Kate, Republicans tend to have an edge on most of the issues that seem to matter to voters, is what many argue, specifically the economy and immigration, right?
Well, certainly Donald Trump has made the economy and immigration two of the biggest things he's been speaking about, and it is essentially the two biggest things for all American voters, not just the Republicans. But all the polls show that the country is split really down the middle, and that half of the country agrees with the way Donald Trump wants to lead the economy and his policies on immigration, which include things like mass deportations, whereas the other half do not want to see those policies brought in. And that's the big issue. The big fundamental thing here is that they are fundamentally different from each other. And the country remains completely divided. So even though, yes, Republicans find immigration and the economy important, so do Democrats. They just both believe that each candidate is the right one to lead in that way, but they cannot find any sort of agreement between it. It means that whoever wins this election, and we may not know that tonight, will have real trouble, because half of the country will not want them in power. So whoever wins is also going to have to try and bring some kind of unity to a very polarized nation.
Well, Kate, thanks so much for joining us with that update. We'll, of course, revert to you for regular update. It's going to be a long night for you. We also have with us from Texas at the moment, Huma Iqbal. Huma, you're in Texas. Take us through some of the things, some of the moves that have appeared to be paying off for both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in Texas.
Hello, good morning to you guys, and it's almost closing time over here, showtime for us over here in the US, and I think it's a very nail-biting, a very close to neck-to-neck kind of a race that is going on. I see a lot of supporters for both sides, and a lot of people are coming in numbers. As you can see behind me, the lines, the queues are still so long, and you know, I have here the constable elected for Precinct 3 right now with us, Nabil Shaikh. Hello, and good evening, Nabil.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Glorious 4 years. How and what different did you do for the community?
So, very first thing that we did was diversify our police department. Precinct 3 is the most diverse precinct in the most diverse county in America, and the police department didn't represent the diverse community. So the first things that we did was to bring a qualified and competent command staff to represent the community a little bit better. The constables used to shut down their offices at 10 o'clock at night, We stopped at. We're now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're here at the Four Corners Community Center. You look at all the events that we've been able to have throughout the last 4 years. We brought the first iftar to Fort Bend County. We came in during COVID, so all of the PPE equipment that we were giving out, food, water. Every year we have a Thanksgiving turkey drive. We do Memorial Day bashes. A lot of the stuff that we do is all community.
So what do you think are the main issues that our community is facing at the moment, and how should we elect, and what are the things that we should look for a change?
So right now what's under attack is female reproductive rights. I'm a proud father of 3 daughters, and so female reproductive rights are a huge issue, and it's a huge issue amongst women voters. And that's what we're seeing a lot out here. Even Republican voters refusing to vote for Donald Trump because of his stance when it comes to female reproductive rights.
And then if re-elected, what is your plans for the next 4 years?
Just to really continue to build on some of the amazing things that we've done over these last 4 years. We're still working on our accreditation, which is the best policies and procedures that you can have in law enforcement. And so we're about 60 policies away now. We've accomplished probably about 2/3 of it. And so hopefully, God willing, about February of next year we should have it.
And your thoughts on the immigration policies?
You know, immigration policies, as law enforcement, we just have to enforce some of the laws. We do have some discretion on, we can not do what certain things, the government, the federal and state government tells us.
Do you see a lot of undocumented, because Texas is the hub for undocumented people, a lot of them. So how do you plan to handle that?
Well, I mean, we got to figure out a pathway to citizenship for everybody. I think, you know, people leave other countries to come here to America to try to find a better life. And so not everybody that's coming here are criminals. Not everybody that's coming here are trying to do harm to the United States. So we have to, when you look at immigration, you got to look at ways where you can vet the people coming in. And once they're here, figure out a way for them to have an easy pathway to citizenship. It doesn't do the country any good if they're not paying any taxes or they're not contributing to the economy. And if we could figure out a way to allow them to pay taxes, give them social security numbers and driver's license, so now they can be productive citizens of the county.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and back to the studio.
And joining us now, also Natasha Esrani from Philadelphia in a moment, and Alistair D'Souza from Virginia. Natasha, I'd like to come to you first. Well, Philadelphia has been quite a toss-up is what people are saying. We don't know what to expect yet. What have you been picking up on? You have been covering this entire run-up to the election for about 4.5 months.
Yes, it's been a long time on the campaign trail. Well, I'm in Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia is the largest city in Pennsylvania. And there was a high turnout amidst voters here in Philadelphia, according to the city officials. And also, what is really crucial here is the young vote. Now, that comes in, there are certain polls that are showing that ages 18 to 29 are coming out in larger numbers in Pennsylvania, about 54% of the vote. And that can make a huge difference in a key battleground state where the prize is 19 electoral college votes. And we are now surrounded by 2 young women who voted for the first time. They're both 18-year-old at Temple University in the heart of Philadelphia. So how did it feel, first and foremost, to exercise your right to vote?
It felt great. I was really happy when I went to vote. I went really early in the morning, and there was no lines. And I mean, I have been learning about voting this whole time, and like learning about, you know, the importance of the election process and just how important it is to vote in general. So it just felt very freeing, and also as a new adult, it felt like, you know, I was able to accomplish one of my responsibilities that I now have. So I was very happy.
I felt very honored, honestly. I've always kind of been a little bit into politics, and to be able to contribute to this election was very, fulfilling in a way, because I'm very in tune with all the stuff that's going on with politics, and with Trump's policies and all of these things. So for me to be able to try to contribute to the right side of things, I feel like that means a lot to me.
So what was the right side of things for you, both of you, and explain why do you think it is the right side of things for you?
Well, I voted for Kamala Harris, and I believe that she was the right side of things and the right choice because of her character and her policies. She advocates for women's rights. She advocates for better rights for the working class. And in terms of her character, we see her everywhere. In terms of her campaign process, she's shown how she's been involved in student work and in meeting with students. She's been involved in the working class and being able to just meet with people face to face. So I feel personally that her humanity is something we haven't seen in a while in terms of presidential candidates.
And you already mentioned Trump, and you also said that you're keenly following the politics of this current moment. What is the biggest issue at stake for you?
Oh my goodness. The biggest stake for me, honestly, would probably be either the policies going around about women's bodily rights, or probably the fact that he's considering eliminating the Board of Education, which is also and then also the student loan things as college students. That's something that's very, very important. And for our future kids, if they want to go to college, these things are things that they should have access to. These rights are things that they should be entitled to. So for Trump to try to go behind that and try to backtrack us even further, it's just definitely not okay, which is why I voted for Kamala. And I understand that she kind of had her own problems and own things, but when you look at, the candidates, it's someone that's actually working for the common good of the people versus a felon. So
given that you are both voting in a major swing state, did that feel like additional pressure on your shoulders, or did you just feel like faraway politics to watch on television?
As far as pressure goes, it's just I feel like it was more I feel like I have to play my part. I have to do my part if I'm worried about how things are going to play out in the future. If I have any right to complain or anything like that, then I should be able to cast my vote and put those complaints and those opinions on something that actually matters towards the rest of the world.
Yeah, as an out-of-state student, I was definitely very intrigued by the concept of voting in Philadelphia, or in Pennsylvania in general, because I know I'm from New York, and that state has always been blue for the longest time. But in Pennsylvania, it's a swing state. So I just felt like my vote mattered the most, being able to vote here, being able to register to vote here. It felt a lot more, I felt like my say had more of a matter in this issue in terms of choosing who to vote for. And I just felt like it was more important if I voted here than in New York.
Well, thank you both talking to us here about the rights of women over their bodies and their reproductive rights, and also the importance of voting for the first time. We also have other students now who are going to be joining us, talking to us about. Thank you so much, both of you. Please join us now. We want to talk to you a little bit more. Can you turn around? We're going to talk to you about what you were thinking of when you voted. Have you both voted?
Yes. First-time voters. We voted for Kamala. I strongly I believe in women's rights, and I feel like she was the best candidate. I feel like it was either a felon or someone who cares about the people and not just the upperclassmen. Trump really only cares about those who are rich and wealthy, and I feel like Kamala cares about all of us and just for the people and middle class, lower class.
Natasha, I sincerely apologize. I'm interrupting you. In fact, we have breaking news coming in. I must inform our viewers that Donald Trump has claimed massive cheating in Philadelphia in a short post on his Truth social media website, but failed to provide evidence. In fact, the Republican presidential candidate's unsubstantiated claim has been rejected by Philadelphia's city commissioner, saying that there's absolutely no truth to this allegation. In fact, Seth Bluestein has written on X saying it is yet another example of disinformation. Voting in Philadelphia has been safe and secure. Natasha is in Philadelphia at the moment. Natasha, now Trump has claimed massive cheating in Philadelphia in a short post on his Truth social media website. This is along expected lines, right?
Absolutely. This is not a surprise, to be honest, even though it is breaking news, because this is something that comes directly from Trump's playbook. They have been building to this for a while. One of their strategies of the campaign is to create that sense of fear and uncertainty and disinformation. And they've also talked a lot about having many lawyers on the ground, an army of lawyers and observers to watch this. So they are already building up to the argument that if this election were to be too close or were Kamala Harris to win, that then he's already laid the base or the ground to argue that there were unfair processes at play. And this has widely been corrected by election officials across the country who believe that voting has been fair. Of course, there have been incidents, as it is in a large democracy, where some ballots were misplaced. That's happened in Philadelphia as well in 2020. But now there are stronger measures in place here in Philadelphia to make sure that those votes are fair. So, we have to treat all those reports with some amount of carefulness and skepticism.
Well, as the Commissioner has endorsed as well, Natasha, we will, of course, revert to you in Philadelphia for an update. Let's just go across quickly to Michigan now, where Chris Casquejo joins us. Chris, latest Trump post says that there's been some cheating in Philadelphia along expected lines. Your first reaction?
That's Donald Trump being Donald Trump. We can talk about Michigan. Do you have any questions about Michigan?
Well, Arab, Muslim and progressive Americans have been divided on how to vote as they faced a difficult choice between these two candidates, which have both been unfriendly to Palestine, as many say. But in Michigan, where you are, the focus is also very much on the Arab American community. Long a reliable Democratic constituency, many of these voters are now furious, we hear, with the Biden administration for the handling of Israel's war in Gaza, now Lebanon. Has Trump been able to take advantage of this, Chris?
Yeah, there's actually a Trump field office in an enclave, a 2-mile wide enclave within the city of Detroit called Hamtramck that was traditionally a Polish neighborhood, but it's now home to newer Yemeni and Bangladeshi immigrants. And there's a Trump field office there, and their conservative mayor recently endorsed Donald Trump. Meanwhile, over in Dearborn, which is right next to Detroit, it has the largest Arab population outside of the Middle East. There are 300,000 total Arab Americans in Michigan and 110,000 in Dearborn. More than half are Arab American and 46% of them are Muslim. And I spent some time with voters on the ground there this morning, and they were very angry about the war in Gaza. Yes.
Right. Chris, we will, of course, revert to you for regular updates from Michigan. I'm going to take a quick break now and be back with the latest in just a moment.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
It's time to set sail with the Lucky Admiral. Visit LuckyAdmiral.com and discover loads of online and mobile casino games like blackjack, poker, roulette, slots, bingo, and more. The Lucky Admiral really has searched the 7 seas to bring a treasure trove of great games, all in one place. Visit today and you could win up to 500 free spins on 9 pots of gold. Simply make your first deposit and spin the mega reel for your chance to win. Bonuses ahoy with up to 500 free spins at LuckyAdmiral.com.
We all love a bargain, like these flatmates who switched to Vodafone and are now paying less for their full fibre broadband, which means they can still stream 2 shows at the same time, but for less. Still gaming with mates, but for less. He's behind you. Reliable full fibre broadband for less from Vodafone.
You could lock in a fixed energy deal now and take the power back. Switch and save at uswitch.com.
Kidding me? You weren't supposed to burn the potatoes or invite everyone round at 2.
It's on 3 o'clock, right?
We weren't supposed to do presents this year.
I can't even be bad at can I?
And you weren't supposed to take everyone home again. We weren't supposed to have our Beth either. We weren't supposed to get married. And you weren't supposed to be here. But you are, thanks to the best gift you ever got. And mine is still having you.
To help us fund life-saving research, donate 5, 10 or 20 pounds, text 5, 10 or 20 to 70499.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
This Christmas, give joyful memories with Photobox. Turn your favourite moments into something special. Gift joy. Unwrap smiles with Photobox. Create now with 50% off everything in our early Black Friday event.
Welcome back to NDTV's special coverage on Battleground United States. Joining us now with live updates from Virginia and Washington, we have with us Gauri Dwivedi and Alistair D'Souza. Alistair, thanks so much for being so patient. I know it's a long night ahead for both of you. But Alistair, in terms of Trump's winnability, take us through where things stand as we speak right now. I know it's a long night ahead, but as things stand currently, how hopeful is Trump and Trump's team of actually winning back the White House?
That's the million-dollar question, Parameshwar. We're all waiting on that, as you've just broken that news just moments ago about that tweet from Trump claiming potential fraud in Pennsylvania. Now, I'm actually in Virginia, and it's pretty much considered a blue state, pretty much. It's gone to the Democrats about 4 times in the last 4 election cycles. Biden has won here by 10 percentage points. In 2020, Kamala Harris is poised to win here by 5 percentage points. So why am I telling you this? Well, because the Republicans have already sown those seeds of doubt, likely laying the groundwork of saying that there could be potential fraud. So it's not a battleground state, but it could become a battle after the battle. Now, for example, you have a Republican governor here. He's managed to convince the Supreme Court to purge about 1,600 names from the ballot. Many of the people who've seen this say that there was no need to do that because many of these 1,600 people were not non-citizens. They simply did not have the right documents to prove that they were citizens, maybe an old driver's license and so on. So many saying that this could potentially be a place where lawsuits would be filed. And if you look at New Mexico way back in 2020, Trump filed a bunch of lawsuits there despite the Democrats, despite Biden winning by a huge margin. So that's the basic brief about Virginia and as far as what Trump goes. And before I hand it back to you, Parameshwar, I need to draw your attention to where I am. I'm at a watch party. There are going to be lots and lots of watch parties across the US, across DC as well. But this one is kind of special because we're talking about an Indian American likely to make history tonight by becoming the first Indian American congressman from the East Coast. Now, The Economist magazine actually says that his odds are pretty good, 98 to 100. So looks likely that he might win here, an important contest for him. And of course, when that party starts and he gets here, we're going to have him on air as well. Back to you, Parameshwar.
And perhaps B, on the edge of history as well, Alistair. We're going to be troubling you through the course of the night. Let's go across to Gauri for a quick update from Washington, D.C. now. Gauri, we are aware both the Trump and Harris campaigns have lined up lawyers in preparation for potential legal challenges over these election results. But now Trump has come out and said that there are massive cheating claims in Philadelphia. You're in Washington, D.C. What's the mood there?
In fact, I am at Howard University, Parmeshwar, where Kamala Harris will hold her watch party. Behind me is the long queue of people going inside to attend that party. Predominantly, one can see a lot of students, a lot of college staff, professors going inside to the watch party. The reason for that is Kamala Harris is an alumni of this university, which is why the watch party is happening here. In the event that she turns out victorious in these elections, she wants her victory message, the first message as the president-elect, to be at her alumni and university, predominantly dominated by the African-American community, sending a powerful message to her community, to America, and of course to the world, that America is embracing its diversity, both racially as well as on the gender aspect. So that's where I am right now, and I think over the course of the next 3 to 4 hours, hopefully we'll have some clarity as to whether the victory party here, whether the victory party will take place here or all the way in Florida. But as we speak about the two aspects that you mentioned, Parmeshwar, very important, which is that are we looking at potential lawsuits and major legal trouble going into this election? Well, the first claims that have been made by Donald Trump have in fact been rebutted both by the Philadelphia District Attorney as well as the County Commissioner, who happens to be a Republican. He himself said that as of now, there's absolutely no claim, no base to any of these claims that have been made by Donald Trump. But the sense one gets is Philadelphia saw record voting in this election. Record. In fact, some of the visuals that came in the last couple of hours showed that queues were going up for 2 hours, if not more. And that indicates that if there is such high voter turnout in Philadelphia, a city that is 43% Black American, then it probably sends some sort of an early message. As I said, probably sends some sort of an early message to the Trump campaign, which is why we saw what really came out right now as a baseless allegation. But through the evening, we will know whether we're going to see more of that, or hopefully this election result will go without much drama, without any legal trouble.
Well, many, Gauri, would argue that the word Trump and drama are compatible, but voters, are they worried about election violence in Washington, D.C., where you are?
That's a very good question, Parmeshwar, and something that I've been asking ad nauseum almost to everybody I've met. And the one thing that they did say is that in 2020, when Donald Trump, when the whole issue and around January 6 took place, President Trump was still there. He was in office for about 70-odd days after he lost the election. So he was still the most powerful man and leader of the free world. That isn't the case this time around. He's an ordinary American citizen exercising his right to contest. So to that extent, the chances of anything significant happening this time around are very low. But again, those are just probability chances. In Washington, D.C. itself, a lot of movement has already taken place. National Guard has been mobilized in the event something happens this time around. But as I said, most people seem to suggest, or at least hope, that it is going to be, the chances of that happening are very, very less this time around.
Gauri, thanks so much for joining us with that live update. We will, of course, be reverting to you for regular updates from Washington, D.C. For now, let me also rope in to decipher the exit polls. We have with us Alex Taracio. Alex, thanks so much for making time for us on NDTV. Voters are worried about election violence. This is what early exit polls indicate. In fact, just under 3/4 of those asked, they say they felt democracy was very or somewhat threatened in the United States.
It's a very high number. That's true. I'm curious about that as well. I've seen in other exit polls that voters are saying that democracy is relatively high on their list of issues of top priority. If you add up the voters who care about democracy and the voters who care about abortion, it adds up to relatively what Harris's voter share is coming in at. And so the 75% figure struck me as strange. I haven't had time to dig into that poll, but I am curious what went into it. It's certainly not possible that those are all Democrats. That's too many. And so I wonder how many Republicans are in there and what people are interpreting when they say that democracy is their top issue.
Also, Alex, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Kamala Harris's campaign's struggle with black voters lately. Can you lay out what the struggle looks like in terms of what the polls are saying? Are we talking about black people leaving the Democratic Party en masse?
No, we're not talking about that. I think it's more of a question of turnout. Kamala Harris has struggled more than Joe Biden did to get black voters to turn out and to express enthusiasm for her campaign, and certainly more than Barack Obama, where that was a high watermark for the Democratic Party. I think the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump and the Republicans are doing more to appeal to black voters, particularly black men. And the shift in the party is almost exclusively from black men. In the polling that I've seen, when it's 30% support for Donald Trump and 70% for Kamala Harris, that's among men, and it's 10-90 for women. And so this is more a story about gender than it's necessarily a story about race.
In fact, Alex, we have the latest numbers out as well. It seems that currently, as per the early leads, 19 states are going to Trump and 3 to Harris. That seems like a bit of a red footprint at the moment on the US map with the Democrats in minority. I also want to get into one of the narratives we've seen this election cycle, Alex, and that's this flip in the parties when it comes down to education. One of the narratives that we've seen emerging is that Democrats are now the party of those with college degrees. So your lawyers, your doctors, and Republicans are more the party of the working class. So your blue-collar workers, maybe without a college degree. I'm trying to make sense of the dichotomy here, because here you have the Republican nominee, your front runner, wasn't really born without a silver spoon, and he's not ideally working class either. Help us understand how this is playing out.
We're in the middle of a political realignment that's been ongoing for some time. I think Donald Trump has accelerated that, but it'll continue to happen when he's gone. It used to be that college-educated voters were exclusively won by the Republican Party. That has been shifting, and now if you are highly educated, if you have a degree, you are more likely to be a Democrat. It's not overwhelmingly so, but you are more likely to vote Democrat. And meanwhile, the white working class are finding that they're throwing their lot in with the Republican Party. That's shifting across the country, that's shifting across racial groups, that's shifting across genders as well. And so education is absolutely one of the major fault lines in the parties today, and I expect to continue to see a move.
Well, also apparently through the first projections, I must inform our viewers that Harris is currently projected to win Vermont, but Trump is currently projected to win Kentucky. Alex, we're also yet to see the numbers play out, but do we know why Trump has been able to peel away some of the black voters? What are the factors there?
I think he's mostly peeling away black men. And if you're a black man, then the message from Kamala Harris is not appealing to you. Those messages are primarily, she will maintain your right to get an abortion, and Donald Trump is a fascist. That is not a winning campaign message. You can drag down another political candidate by calling him names, by denigrating them. Every candidate does that, so what she's doing isn't special. But what's remarkable is that she's made it the centerpiece of her campaign. Typically, policy is more of a top issue, and in an era where inflation in the economy and border security are voters' top concerns, I don't think that appealing to voter groups by calling the Republican Party nominee a fascist is a winning message, particularly among black men.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining us and helping us decipher the data. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as and when more projections come in. I'd also like to now introduce David K. Johnston, who joins us, who's a political strategist, gun control expert. Chika Hamilton's on the broadcast with us. We also have with us Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, and Jennifer Kelly, who's a Republican strategist. Let's go straight across to Mr. Vickery first. Sir, are you hopeful that Kamala Harris is now going to be taking the reins for the White House, or could things still be completely different by the end of the night?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think that today has been a great day so far for democracy. I voted yesterday, my wife voted today, and I'm sure people in India who have the opportunity to vote in a democracy feel the same pride that I do at people being able to go and make their choices. And with relatively few exceptions, things have gone smoothly. I think that the tweet that you indicate on X or about Trump saying that there's some sort of massive fraud in Pennsylvania, which has been completely debunked, as were his claims that he actually won in 2020, debunked by Republicans as well as Democratic judges. I think that that shows that he's really worried about Pennsylvania, and he's laying the groundwork to try to contest what is happening there. I don't think that he would have put out that kind of tweet unless if he didn't think that Kamala was in the lead in Pennsylvania. So I think it's been a great day so far, but the hard work is going to begin after the votes are in. It'll be hard work in defense of democracy either way. I think that if Kamala, Vice President Harris wins, then you're going to see more of the same thing that you saw in 2020. That,
but Mr. Vikram, you know, the average American, they seem more skeptical about how Kamala Harris has fared recently. Do you agree and do you echo the same skepticism as the average American when it comes to, let's say, policy issues of the economy?
Well, I think that former President Trump has been very adept at painting a completely untrue picture of what's going on with the U.S. economy. The fact is, we came out of a pandemic in not good shape, but in much better shape than if we hadn't spent money to keep people employed. There was some inflation involved, and that's a problem, but that is coming down. But the picture he's been able to paint for people is that they were much better off under him. The statistics do not bear that out, but he's been able to, through his demagoguery, to convince many people that somehow the United States is in complete decline economically. The facts don't bear that out, either in job growth, in GDP growth, and as I say, inflation is coming under control, but it is the inflation that people see that he's been, that is at the grocery store, if you will, and he's been able to use a demagogue's approach to that to convince people that they were much better off. The fact is, we've come in for a soft landing when many economists were saying that we were headed for a certain recession.
Yes.
And so I think President Biden and Vice President Harris ought to get some credit for it, but that is an issue here. But as you've seen,
we'll have to wait and see if that translates into a victory for Kamala Harris by the end of tonight. Let's also rope in Mr. Johnston at the moment. The average American does seem more skeptical about Kamala Harris and how she's fared as per latest polls, but here she is running against a twice impeached, historically unpopular, convicted felon former president, and it's still a toss-up. But at the moment, Trump is projected to win Kentucky and Indiana, and Kamala Harris is projected to win Vermont. These are both reliable gains for both candidates, right?
Yes, there are really only 7 states that are in play, possibly an 8th, Iowa, and they will decide the election. California and New York are going to go for Kamala Harris. Louisiana and Mississippi are going to go for Donald Trump. And at the moment, we have no idea the outcome. Now, Donald is out there already, as I predicted months ago he would be, asserting that there's cheating going on already, asserting that they've had to have heavy police presence in Philadelphia, which is completely untrue. And the American TV networks have been running live shots showing that that's not the case. But that's how Donald, whom I've covered since 1988, when I wrote way back then he might become president of the United States in 1988, that's how he operates. He is a con artist. He's a lifelong career criminal, and he has conned millions and millions of Americans into believing he's a business genius. He's not. He's a cash extractor of enterprises that he gets his hands on with borrowed money, none of his own money. He squeezes them until there's nothing left, and he drops them. And he has a long history of cheating governments, cheating workers, investors, colleagues, that I've documented from public records all across his career. And of course, he's now a convicted felon, 34 felonies, and he's facing 3 more criminal trials in the near future. 3 weeks from today, I expect that he will be sentenced to prison in New York State for the first 34 of the crimes he's been convicted of.
Well, we'll wait and see how this plays out. Let's also rope in Shikha Hamilton at the moment, who's a gun control expert and an activist with United Against Gun Violence. Shikha, it's no surprise Trump has actually come out and said that the NRA is his best friend. Are you hopeful of how tonight plays out?
I'm very hopeful tonight. It's a great day in America. Anytime there's an election, free and fair election in America, it's exciting. This has been a groundbreaking election by Kamala Harris leading the way. I have volunteered on elections for 41 years. And I have never seen the kind of ground game that I'm seeing in the past several months. Volunteers are out there knocking on doors, thousands of doors in the swing states, and it's going to be an exciting night.
Do you believe Kamala Harris actually has something different to offer than Joe Biden?
Kamala Harris, well, I think, of course, she's a different human, but she comes with a perspective. She's the daughter of immigrant parents, first of all. So she comes with a different perspective. And the fact that she is a woman of color representing the South Asian community as well as the Black community. And she has been ingrained in both communities. And that is America. America is made up of people that are children of immigrants. I mean, we're all immigrants, right? But she has lived the American dream. She grew up middle class. Nothing was handed to her. Her mother worked hard as a single mother. This is what the American dream is truly about. And that's what she represents.
Right.
I love Joe Biden, so I'm not taking anything away from him. She's just bringing hope and inspiration for Americans and Indian Americans. I'm an Indian American. My daughter is half Black, half Indian, like Kamala Harris. So she inspires her. And the next generation is ready for this president.
In fact, many say the United States is ready for its first female president. Mr. Johnston, how have we seen the dynamic between education, class, and politics play out this election in the United States?
Well, the Democrats who are traditionally the party of unions and the working class, have done a very poor job for about 50 years of appealing to union members. Now, some of this is wrapped in a race. There are a number of unions in the United States, particularly construction unions, that work very hard to make sure only white people, especially white men, are able to get jobs in those fields. And because they're unionized, they pay well. So they are, in fact, seen by many people as the party of the educated class. One of the interesting things about the support for Trump is that his policies literally take money from those in the bottom 90% of the income stream and redistribute them to people at the very, very top, the billionaire and centimillionaire class. I wrote a series of best-selling books about how this was going on before Trump came along, but he then ramped this up, and he promises to ramp it up more. So it's very surprising. Now, at every rally, Donald says, we love the poorly educated. And part of the reason for that is poorly educated people are treated badly in America, in the news media, in advertising, and everywhere else. So he's trying to get them to feel that he cares for them. But his history is one of cheating workers, abusing workers. He said recently that he hates a number of work rules. And in fact, in one of the earlier campaigns, he said Americans are paid too much money. Wages are too high. Sort of the thing you might expect from a boss who doesn't care about his employees.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. It's going to be a long, exciting, thrilling night ahead. 7 swing states will decide whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump is sworn in as the next president of the United States in January. And their polling averages are all within the margin of error. But in an election this close, small constituencies really matter. I must inform you that at the moment, CNN has projected that Kentucky and Indiana is going to Donald Trump, and Vermont is going to Harris. Harris stands at 46% favorability as opposed to Donald Trump's 42%. Non-stop coverage carries on NDTV right after this very short break.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
Bingo lovers, it's time for a close encounter with Bingo Aliens. Visit bingoaliens.com/bingo for a cosmic range of bingo games. 75-ball bingo, even 90-ball bingo. All from a galaxy far away, direct to you. Taking bingo to another dimension at bingoaliens.com/bingo.
Foodies, Gourmet Nature's Creations Gravy Heart is a meal made with heart. Outside a soft steam cooked mousse and inside a delicious gravy heart. With surprises like these, it's natural to get so many hearts. Gourmet Nature's Creations Gravy Heart by Purina. Buy now.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
Want more from your energy than just bills? Whoa! What? With OVO Beyond, you can save money on bills every month, get exclusive access to gigs, unlock a free boiler service, and bank greener rewards for tomorrow too. Nice. Switch to OVO and get our free energy savings account and unlock savings and discounts worth up to £1,000. Search OVO Beyond.
The war in Ukraine continues to put children in terrible danger. Homes, schools and hospitals have been destroyed, energy supplies cut off. Families are still displaced from their homes, now facing a harsh winter without warm clothes, fuel and shelter. To find out how you can help, search UNICEF Ukraine online or text WINTER to 84901. In my years reporting on war, I've seen its impact on children, but I've seen how UNICEF makes a difference day by day. UNICEF is providing warm clothes, boots and blankets to keep children and babies warm, and generators and fuel to help power vital services. £32 could help provide warm winter clothes for a baby or young child. Search UNICEF Ukraine or text WINTER to 84901 and help make a difference for children today.
There's something new in Lottoland. Get set for a welcome offer. Stake £20 on Big Bass Bonanza and get 100 free spins at Lottoland Casino.
However your home uses the internet, EE has the perfect Wi-Fi for you. We've got full fiber for only $29.99 a month. Perfect for binging all your favorite shows with no upfront costs. Keep your whole home seamlessly connected with the UK's most reliable broadband technology. Powered by BT. And if that's still not enough, you can upgrade to Wi-Fi 7, where everything you love works better. No wonder families choose EE. Search EE Broadband Deals.
What's wrong with the car? It's okay, lads. I'm with the AA. Ah, Bombay mix.
Because the AA has more expert patrols across the country, you'll be back on the road in no time. No wonder more people choose the AA. Join today.
It's gonna take a lot to drag me away from you. There's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do.
Luckily, Liam got 0% interest for 21 months on all the wedding surprises he bought with his Barclay card. What you buy is your business. Helping you pay less interest is ours. Barclay card. Make money work for you.
Good evening, America, and good morning, India. Well, you brace yourself because it's going to be a long night ahead if you're tuning in from America to watch us. Currently, Kentucky and Indiana, according to early projections, have been called for Donald Trump. And for Kamala Harris, it's blue Vermont as we speak. Early projections are trickling in. The world's eyes are fixed on a moment where the United States is going to pick its next president. We have a whole lot lined up for you. Let's begin with the headlines we're tracking currently. The first leads are in. CNN projects Trump wins in Indiana and Kentucky. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is projected to win Vermont. Republicans lead Democrats in a Senate race. AP says Republicans are leading Democrats in this race. Kamala Harris's team and allies are concerned about Georgia after Georgia has been plagued by non-credible bomb threats throughout the day that have appeared to accelerate as the state approaches poll closing. In fact, some polling locations have extended voting hours in Georgia as a result of these threats, while voting has been suspended at 5 voting locations. Well, the first polls are closing in Indiana and Kentucky as the United States enters the final hours of voting in this election. Voters say democracy and the economy are the most important issues informing how they voted in the United States election as per early exit polls. Now, at first blush, the opening round of exit polls aren't too surprising, as analysts have pointed out on NDTV as well. The economy, the state of democracy, abortion rights are the top issues for American voters this year, in keeping with what we've been seeing from public opinion surveys this month and for months. If you dig a bit deeper, however, the sharp partisan divides in the electorate also makes themselves very apparent, because for Republicans, immigration joined the economy near the top of their concerns. Abortion also an issue that has also been huge for Democrats. For those on the left, abortion rights along with democracy were much more important. It's a bit of a surprise that the economy wasn't a dominant top issue for American voters, given how much of the political debate has centered around the post-pandemic spike in inflation. But as has been pointed out by surveys, economic growth is not the top priority for an average American. This could be because there were some Republicans who were worried about the state of American democracy, and they amped up the voice on that, albeit for very different reasons than Democrats. But of course, as I highlight these exit polls and what they indicate, what they suggest, you must remember this is just rough data, and should not be treated as gospel, because the real verdict in this election is yet to come. In terms of the latest updates, I must inform you that the Associated Press has called its first states, and there are thus far no surprises. Kamala Harris became the latest Democrat to win Vermont, a party stronghold. Donald Trump has actually won Indiana and Kentucky as per CNN projections, both red states. The AP has not yet called swing states of Georgia or Virginia and South Carolina. I must warn you, don't let these early results on election night fool you. Delayed absentee ballot counts in key swing states could tilt how the presidential race ultimately shakes out. In terms of a flashback, in 2020, in case you remember, states like Georgia and Michigan turned from red to blue on the electoral map as more ballots were received and counted, prompting Donald Trump and his allies to claim the results were rigged and the election stolen. And that brings me to the latest as far as Donald Trump is concerned, because he has said that there has been massive cheating as far as Philadelphia is concerned. Now, that claim, the county commissioner has said, is unsubstantiated. In fact, I must also inform you that Donald Trump has now claimed West Virginia in terms of the current state of play. For further clarity, let's go across to my colleague Benji Hire, who joins us. Benji, what is happening at the moment? Kentucky and Indiana have been called as per CNN projections for Trump. Kamala Harris going with blue Vermont, and now Donald Trump claiming a few more states?
Well, I think ultimately, in terms of, where we predict this race is going to be won and lost, much of the attention currently is on Georgia. The polls closing in the past half an hour, and because of the way that that state is counted, and because of the enormous turnout before Election Day, either in person or mail-in, we're expected to get a pretty comprehensive understanding of which way Georgia is trending in the next half an hour or so. The state's Secretary of State saying that 75% of all of Georgia's votes would have been declared by 8 p.m. local time. That's in about 25 minutes. And that will give us, I think, the first real indication, the first real picture as to the way this race is heading. The other states you mentioned, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, expectedly going the Republican way. Those aren't one of the half dozen or so battleground states where it is seen this election could be won or lost. And so we are effectively awaiting the early vote results to come from Georgia, one of those states which is seen as too close to call, having been solidly Republican, solidly red for many, many years, but in the past couple of years becoming a real battleground, and the Democrats hoping that if they can pull off a win there, that really that opens up the path to the White House for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Also, Benji, have polls closed in battleground North Carolina as well as Ohio and West Virginia?
Well, the polls have closed, I can tell you, in a handful of states. They include, as I mentioned before, Georgia, as well as Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Virginia, and Vermont. So we are awaiting the closure of polls further west in the country, such as Ohio, as you said, or such as the battleground states of Michigan and Wisconsin in the Midwest. Those two, as well as Pennsylvania, the so-called blue wall that Joe Biden managed to win and take some states off Donald Trump that the former president won in 2016. And again, that is seen as the chance, really, for Kamala Harris to enforce herself as a prospective president if she can seal those three blue wall Rust Belt states and then potentially take a state like Georgia in America's South. Then that really does open up her path. Early numbers that are coming in from Georgia at the moment slightly favouring the former president Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, but we're really in the very early days here. In effect, if we are starting a hike as the metaphor, we are just beginning on the trail, tying up our shoelaces, filling up our water bottles. We have a long way to go until we come over the crest of that mountain, and that picture as to the way this contest is going is only really going to be painted as we get more comprehensive results, especially from Georgia, and then we await for those polls to close in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Well, Benji, thanks so much for joining us with that update. We'll, of course, revert to you for regular updates as I go across to the White House Bureau Chief from Voice of America, Patsy Widakuswara, who's at the Kamala Harris HQ at the moment, I'm told. Patsy, election officials around the U.S. are now reporting turnouts at near record highs.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, this has been anticipated, this kind of enthusiasm and excitement from both camps, both Harris and Trump. I mean, in their last press briefing, the campaign manager, Jen O'Malley, saying that they're really proud of the grassroots and also the turnout effort. And Vice President Kamala Harris herself did not give up. I mean, even on the car ride here, she's still on call with radio stations, getting people out to vote. There's still time in some states. And also, even just earlier today at the Democratic National Committee in Washington, D.C., Kamala Harris was participating in urging people to vote.
Right. As we just work on fixing that audio line with my colleague Patsy, I'd just like to inform you that voting has just wrapped up in 6 states, including Georgia, one of the swing states, expected to determine the winner of the presidential election. But at the moment, election officials across the United States are reporting turnouts at record high levels. Polls are closing in battleground North Carolina, meanwhile, as well as Ohio and West Virginia. In fact, early CNN projections have actually attributed West Virginia to Donald Trump. Trump is winning the red states, Kentucky and Indiana, as we speak, while Kamala Harris is picking up blue Vermont. That's the latest update we can share with you. In fact, AP has also called Kentucky and Indiana for Donald Trump and Vermont for Kamala Harris. Natasha Israni is with us from Philadelphia at the moment. Natasha, what's the sentiment on ground zero in Philadelphia? As per early projections, we have been able to tell that Kentucky, Indiana, and now West Virginia have been called for Donald Trump, while blue Vermont goes to Kamala Harris.
Well, I can talk about the mood here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. First and foremost, there has been no official reports of any voter fraud, as Donald Trump has been claiming on Truth Social. So that has not been verified at all. So let's start with that. When it comes to Pennsylvania, the polls are still open at 7:40 p.m. here. They close at 8 p.m. and even 8 p.m. any voter in line is allowed to vote till he or she gets into the polling station. So it's a long night to go, and there's a very good chance that Pennsylvania is actually not called tonight at all, and it goes early into the morning tomorrow or even a few days later. And that's because Pennsylvania has some very strict rules around ballot counting, and in fact mail-in ballots, which are a huge percentage, could only be counted starting today, which is November 5th in the morning at 7 a.m. and not before that. Pennsylvania also asked that its counting agencies continue counting overnight. So yes, this night is going to be long, and I do want to get some perspective from a young voter here also voting for the first time. Tell us what it was like to cast your first vote, and who did you vote for?
So first time to cast vote for was Kamala Harris, because Trump is loose on crime from day one. And I have found no official documents, no official come outs on the cheating of on Philadelphia, in the state of Philadelphia, overall Pennsylvania. I have not found any misleading or cheating.
So you just don't find him credible on certain sources. But what were the issues that were important to you when you voted for Kamala Harris?
So when I voted for Kamala Harris, the issues were just for the middle class, because she is from middle class, so she will support the middle class. While Trump is from a millionaire, he's from a rich family, so he'll only support the rich family. He'll not support the middle class.
So our young guest here talking about what his concerns were, the middle class, and he feels that Kamala Harris is going to be more supportive on that. We have been speaking to a lot of young students also here at Temple University in Philadelphia, and the youth vote is crucial in the swing state. So we're going to see how it plays out between the youth vote, women, suburban voters, a very, very important state, especially as now the countdown has begun to closing of the polls.
In fact, Gen Z is expected to play a huge role in this election. Thanks so much for joining us with that update from Philadelphia, Natasha. Let me also introduce the mayor of New Jersey, who joins us on NDTV at the moment. Neena Singh is with us on the broadcast. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. Many political watchers assert that the argument that Kamala Harris has underperformed, it actually tends to rest on two different charges, that Kamala Harris has played it too safe and that she has played it too vague. Keeping this in mind, ma'am, who do you think is going to emerge as the winner tonight? Who do you think is going to be moving into the White House?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. And I want to be clear, I'm the first Indian American woman mayor in New Jersey, but not the whole mayor of New Jersey. I'm the mayor of Montgomery Township in New Jersey. But to your question, I am hoping that people vote their values. And, we've been presented with two different visions for America. One, which is looking forward as to what we can do, what our future should be, and one more about what happened in the past and, how someone was not treated well and scare tactics. And as an immigrant woman in this country where I have been welcomed warmly, and I am, as I mentioned, the first Indian American woman mayor, where people have voted for me, people are willing to look at an immigrant and see what they bring to the table. From the other side, from Donald Trump, it is immigrants go back. So between you and me, I'm hoping that people vote their values and we are able to have President Kamala Devi Harris as our president.
Ms. Singh, how many years have you spent in the United States?
I've been here now 26 years.
That's a long time. So you're actually a perfect voice to actually ask the national environment as far as your country is concerned in general. Is it one with all the ingredients for a Republican landslide and a conservative cultural rebuke?
There could be. I mean, there is definitely concerns. If you're saying there would be a landslide for Trump, that could be the reason for that could be that some people are not happy with the economy, though they forget that the economy was very different under Trump and we went into trillions of debt. So yes, I mean, there are people who are coming into this and thinking, oh, I'm a legal immigrant and, he's against illegal immigrant. But my question to everybody is, if you see me on the street, are you going to ask me, am I a legal immigrant or am I an illegal immigrant?
Right.
If there is any feeling in people that immigrants go back, I could be one of those people. People will say, hey, you go back. You're an immigrant here. You don't need to be in this country. So I just want to ask people to think ahead, think of our children, think of our future, and vote what you feel is good for our future generations is what I'm asking people to vote for.
Right, Ms. Singh, do stay on with us as I also rope in Carolyn Prasuti at the moment, who joins us with a live update. Carolyn, where are you? What's the sentiment on ground zero? Is Kamala Harris going to be moving into the White House soon, or does it look like Donald Trump moves back?
We don't know that yet, but I can tell you where I am, at least. I can tell you that I'm inside the Palm Beach County Convention Hall. You can hear the music behind me. Occasionally, they turn up Fox News and they repeat the results in some of the states, and you'll hear a yell come up from the crowd. Otherwise, they're just kind of milling about. There's plenty of wine here, plenty of food here, lots of people in red, white, and blue, lots of people with MAGA hats, which is Make America Great Again. And let's tell you a little bit about these hats. On the back of the hat, it says 45-47. And what that means is, Donald Trump was president. He was the 45th president, but now they're predicting 47. So the hats were already made up for tonight, and these people are definitely expecting to have a victory party here tonight at this election watch party.
Well, we'll keep reverting to you for regular updates from the Trump headquarters at this watch party as you enjoy some wine and in that red iconic Donald Trump color of yours. Thanks so much for joining us with that update.
Sure.
Ms. Singh,
my pleasure.
Back to you. Take us through some of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's moves that have appeared to paid off this election, starting with Kamala Harris.
I think with Kamala Harris, I think what she did, can I talk about what she did well? And then we can go into what did not work. Yeah, so what she did well is I feel that she had a very short window, if you know, to get into it and get out there and get people on her side. She was really good. She hit the ground running. She was out there. She was meeting people. She was talking about her vision, right? And that's something that I feel that the young people have really taken on. Maybe where she didn't get to really shine was maybe the economy and the border, right? That was something that I feel that should have been done a little more. But again, you know, she's been doing this not for the whole election cycle or since last 2 years as Donald Trump. So I give her that grace. And I think she's done amazing for a candidate who handled the baton so late in the game.
Right.
And to come and do what she's doing. And then I guess you want to know what Donald Trump has done well. And I guess with him, his MAGA movement, Make America Great Again, though I do have a lot of people who say it's not a MAGA movement, it's a MAVA movement, and it's Make America White Again. And that's what a lot of people say to me. And I'm like, I hope that's not what it means. And the thing that he's not done well, in my opinion, is he should have grown his tent. I mean, I have friends who are Republicans, and I'm totally, you know, to me, I'm a leader in my town for all Republicans and all Democrats and all independents. My job is to make sure that once I'm elected, I am the representative for all people. And I don't see that from him. And I think that's that's what's missing in his campaign.
Very interesting, you know, missing, because I was reading a survey that said if all women were to step out and vote, then Kamala Harris would emerge as the winner. But if working class white male were, let's say, stepping out, then Donald Trump would be the clear winner. Help us understand what's going on here. Is there a clear divide as far as the political playground is concerned? And is there a clear divide in terms of class as well?
I would say more so with the women vote, because as you must have heard, Roe v. versus Wade was struck down because of the 3 judges, Supreme Court judges, Donald Trump was able to get in. Right, he appointed them, and we have heard horror stories. I am in New Jersey, which, you know, the tri-state area is pretty progressive. Whereas there are people we hear from Kentucky, from Texas, who are, you know, losing, people have lost their life. Young women wanting to get an abortion are going across, you know, the state borders. So yes, I think women have realized that their body, their decision, and nobody should come after their health care. To me, having a baby is health care. So I think that is the thing when I look at what Kamala Harris, you know, that white, the women vote, not the white vote, the women vote. That's why Kamala Harris is doing so well over there. For the other, if you were asking for Donald Trump and the blue collar vote, I guess he does. I mean, people forget he's a billionaire. It's amazing. I talk to people and they're like, he's one of us, Nina. And I'm like, he's a billionaire. He's not one of us. That I'm a middle-class woman. To me, Kamala has lived the life that I am living. I wouldn't say I've lived the life that Donald Trump is living, but I guess he appeals to people because they feel he's like one of us. So I guess he's really good at portraying that.
Well, Ms. Singh, thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand the battleground better. We will revert to you for regular updates. For now, we're taking a very quick break. Back in a moment with much more. Don't go anywhere.
It's time to set sail with the Lucky Admiral. Visit LuckyAdmiral.com and discover loads of online and mobile casino games like blackjack, poker, roulette, slots, bingo, and more. The Lucky Admiral really has searched the 7 seas to bring a treasure trove of great games, all in one place. Visit today and you could win up to 500 free spins on 9 pots of gold. Simply make your first deposit and spin the mega reel for your chance to win. Bonuses ahoy with up to 500 free spins at LuckyAdmiral.com.
Family life. It's made of ups and downs, and those little moments But should the unthinkable happen to you? Life insurance from Legal & General can help look after monthly bills, the roof over their heads, childcare costs, and most importantly, your family. Because no one protects more families in the UK than us. Premiums start from £5 a month and they never rise. Plus there's a £120 gift card after you apply. Legal & General. Ensure life goes on.
Breaking news. Whoa. Duracell, the official partner of Williams Racing.
It's time for a power boost. I gotta train harder. Whoa! Power boost activated. Try Duracell Optimum for the next level of power.
Babe, can you do my dress up? What's happened? Are you actually kidding me?
You weren't supposed to burn the potatoes. Or invite everyone round at 2.
It's till 3 o'clock, right?
We weren't supposed to do presents this year.
I can't even be bad at you now, can I?
And you weren't supposed to take everyone home again. We weren't supposed to have our Beth either. We weren't supposed to get married. And you weren't supposed to be here. But you are, thanks to the best gift you ever got. And mine is still having you.
To help us fund life-saving research, donate £5, £10 or £20. Text 5, 10 or 20 to 70499.
I've been thinking, I want to plan my funeral so it feels more like a celebration. My parents always said I was born dancing. I just love it. Bhangra, disco, even line dancing. So when my time comes, I want to have music, dancing, the lot.
With over 150 years' experience, you can count on Co-op Funeral Care to help you pre-plan the funeral you want. To find out more, visit Co-op Funeral Care or give us a call.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
A rare and beautiful tiger, trapped by vicious steel cables, slowly dying. Another victim of wildlife crime. Adopt a better future for tigers with WWF and help stop their painful deaths. We'll send you an exciting adoption pack with a cuddly toy. Call 0800 035 7100 or search WWF Tiger and adopt a tiger for just £3 a month. We must do all we can to keep them alive.
Visit bingoaliens.com/bingo for a cosmic range of bingo games, taking bingo to another dimension at bingoaliens.com/bingo.
We all love a bargain, like these flatmates who switched to Vodafone and are now paying less for their full fibre broadband, which means they can still stream 2 shows at the same time. But for less. Still gaming with mates, but for less. He's behind you. Reliable full fibre broadband for less from Vodafone.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
Experian could improve your credit score. Boost it instantly by up to 101 points for free. Experian, the UK's most trusted credit score. You can download the app while I bop to this jam. So if you need to improve your credit score, do Experian first.
There's something new in Lottoland. Get Set Casino. Hold tight, your casino favourites are here. Blackjack, roulette, plus live dealers. Here's the big draw slots, Big Bass Bonanza, Wolf Gold, and exclusive games like Lottoland Bonanza. Get set for a welcome offer. Stake £20 on Big Bass Bonanza and get 100 free spins. The fun comes out of the blue at Lottoland Casino.
This Christmas, give joyful memories with Photobox. Turn your favourite moments into something special. Gift joy. Unwrap smiles with Photobox. Create now with 50% off everything in our early Black Friday event.
Well, the first election results are coming in, and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are winning reliable states. Kamala Harris and Trump each need at least 270 electoral votes to win the presidency. The battleground states of Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Nevada are seen as pivotal to their path to victory. But the main event tonight is the race for the White House, but it's by no means the only election we're watching. The next biggest prize up for grabs tonight is the control of the Senate, the upper house in America's Congress. In fact, about a third of the Senate seats are being contested. At the moment, the Democrats are in charge of the Senate, but only by the slimmest of margins, and polls indicate that that could well change this evening if you're tuning in from America, and this morning if you're watching us in India. There's a long way to go, but Republicans have snagged at least one new seat, with now projections coming in for West Virginia. Actually, West Virginia has now been given to Trump, with Kentucky and Indiana. As far as Vermont is concerned, early CNN projections have called Vermont for Kamala Harris. At the moment, we have Steve Herman joining us from Florida, where we're told the Democrats are expected to suffer a big blow. But before we get to that, let's take you through the headlines. Well, the first polls are closing in Indiana and Kentucky as the United States enters the final hours of voting in the election. Voters say democracy and the economy are the most important issues. The first leads are in. CNN projects Trump wins in Indiana and Kentucky. Meanwhile, there are more bomb threats at Georgia polling sites. Polls are closing in battleground North Carolina as well as Ohio and West Virginia. Early indications show Democrats are leading in Ohio. The lead widens for Democrats in battleground in North Carolina, with Republicans continuing to lead in swing state Georgia. Welcome to NDTV's non-stop extensive coverage regarding the US election. Steve Herman now joining us from Florida at the moment. Steve, we're told the Democrats are having a bit of a bad time as far as Florida is concerned.
Florida is really tough for Democrats. I expect Donald Trump will win Florida. Right. There are only two of the key states where the polls have closed so far, and that would be North Carolina and Georgia. And I expect close races in both those places.
Right. We also have with us Brad Bannon at the moment. I'd just like to take a quick comment from Brad. Right. I apologize sincerely. Let's go across to Steve Herman at the moment from Florida. Steve, as Brad has just mentioned, the Democrats are expected to have a bit of a tough time in Florida. How are things looking for the Republicans as we speak?
Yes, I'm actually in Georgia, one of the swing states that's north of Florida. And what I can tell you here is this is really the state to watch. Donald Trump is expected to win Florida. Another southern state, North Carolina, is obviously one to watch, where you've indicated that early returns, Kamala Harris, the Democrat, is ahead there. And here in Georgia, in this county that I'm in, Gwinnett County, they had a record turnout today, as they did in a number of other counties in this state. And this is one of those 7 key swing states. And we should be getting some results from here, from this county, at any moment. And this county is really considered a bellwether one to watch, which could indicate which way things go in the entire state of Georgia tonight.
So, right. Steve, in terms of the things that have worked, in terms of the moves specifically that have worked for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris this time around, beginning with Trump, what has really worked for him?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
In terms of the moves, the electoral moves and the policy agenda, the issues, what has really worked for Kamala Harris and Trump respectively this time around?
Well, I think one thing that a lot of Democrat and Republican and independent voters agree on is that they're very concerned about the economy, especially inflation. Although numbers have looked pretty good during the Biden administration on paper, a lot of people say they have not been feeling any relief from the inflation. And of course, the reproductive rights issue, abortion, that is a big one, especially for female voters. And the Democrats have hope that that is what really could make the difference for them in a number, if not all, of these 7 swing states. And then when you talk about Democrats and Republicans and independents again, they'll also both tell you that they feel democracy is at stake with this election.
Right. In fact, that has also been highlighted through exit polls. Brad, come in here. In terms of the exit polls, immigration, the state of the economy, and the fact that democracy is not heading in the right direction has been highlighted. What would you attribute the decline to?
Yeah, one of the things that surprised me about the results of the national exit day polls is that there's much concern about among American voters about the state of democracy as there is about the state of the economy. And usually the economy is the dominant issue. And I think many Americans, this is a theme that Kamala Harris pushed very hard especially during the later parts of the campaign. And I think it's a good sign that so many Americans are concerned about the state of democracy, because I feel many American voters feel it would be, we could have a dangerous slide into fascism if Donald Trump serves a second term. So I think the big 2 issues so far in the exit polls are the state of democracy and the state of the economy. And I think that, again, it's so much concern about the state of democracy. I think that's an advantage for Harris, while voters concerned about the economy are probably going to vote for Trump. Most Americans say in the exit polls that at least half of the public thinks that they're worse off economically than they were 4 years ago under Donald Trump. And that the economy is a big issue for Trump, but the concern about democracy is a big positive for Vice President Harris.
Right. Also, Brad, Americans have been vocal about how they're really upset with the direction the country is heading in. Would you then say Republicans actually have an edge in terms of most of the issues that are seen to matter to voters, specifically the economy and immigration?
I think immigration, what the earlier exit polls suggest is again, the 2 big issues are democracy and the economy. Way back in the pack, there's a middling level of concern about abortion and immigration. People who are concerned about abortion are going to vote heavily for vice president, and people who are concerned about immigration are going to vote big time for Donald Trump. reproductive rights is a big issue for the vice president, and immigration is a place where voters fault the Biden-Harris administration, and those voters are going to go big time for Donald Trump, I believe. But again, the two big issues that have been revealed in tonight's exit polls are the economy and the state of democracy.
Right, and in terms of Kamala Harris's focus on personal freedoms, right, before I get to that, I must inform our viewers that CNN has projected that Trump is winning Missouri and also Trump is winning Oklahoma. These are as per CNN's early projections. So besides Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, now we have CNN calling Missouri and Oklahoma for Donald Trump. Reverting to Kamala Harris's focus on personal freedoms, Brad, predominantly abortion rights and democracy, has it given her a significant boost among Democratic partisans and moderates and a clear edge over the Republicans?
Yes, it has. Again, you know, this honestly surprised me when I first saw the exit polls an hour ago. I had no idea that there would be this much concern about democracy as voters indicated today. And that's a big advantage for Harris. Abortion's a big advantage for Harris. The two issues that work for Trump are the economy, because people worry about the state of the economy under Joe Biden, and immigration, which is a big plus for the Republican Party. And if you watch Donald Trump's speeches during the campaign, he talks about the immigration problems in every appearance he's made in the last few months. And he probably has a decisive advantage on issue in the same way that Harris has a decisive issue on reproductive rights and abortion.
Well, thanks so much, Brad, for helping us make sense of what's going on as far as Battleground US is concerned. We also have with us Jennifer, who's a Republican strategist, joining us on the broadcast at the moment. Jennifer, there's been a lot of talk about the Harris campaign's struggles with black voters lately. And many say that black voters, specifically male voters, are now leaning towards Donald Trump. Can you lay out what the struggle looks like? And are we talking about black people leaving the Democratic Party en masse? What have you been picking up on from the Republican aides?
I think the question you asked me was about black voters and the Democratic Party. I'm right now at a Democratic watch party here in Florida, and there are a lot of black voters here. Clearly, the Democrats don't have many problems, but also earlier today in West Palm Beach, I did see a group of blacks for Trump. And we do know that young black males have been voting for Trump in large numbers, according to a lot of the data we've seen, and that it has been a rather a surprise. It's been a challenge for Kamala Harris, and I know she made a specific pitch to those voters. We're going to see what the turnout's like and how she does with those voters, but certainly just from this party here, there are a lot of black Democratic voters here in West Palm Beach, of course, Donald Trump's hometown, and in a state he is likely to win.
Many people have been speaking to say that the Democrats are going to be dealt quite the obstacle race in Florida, and by all means, they should not cling on to hopes of winning there.
You know, Florida has really kind of become a reliable Republican state, but let me bring somebody in here who can talk to you about the Democratic perspective. I have with me Dr. Robin Cox-Levitt-Franklin here with me. She is here at this watch party waiting to hear results about whether her niece is going to become a state's attorney. She is a lawyer herself. What is it like being a Democrat in Florida today?
Oh, it's challenging. However, it's not that we're against Trump. We're just for Kamala. We're for democracy. You know, as people here in the world, on the planet, we can all live together. We can even agree to disagree. But we do it with respect for each other, with integrity. And that is what Kamala Harris brings to the table. My niece Alexis Cox, that's what she brings to the table. Hard work, due diligence, integrity. And you can go a long way with that. So it's not that we are against anyone. We want to unite everyone and work this thing together.
And what do you think will if Donald Trump does win?
I think it'll be sad if there's violence, because I think that what happened on January 6th is just awful. And to see even something slightly like that happening again, and we turn Americans against Americans, that would be dysfunctional as a country and just something that we would not want the world to see as United States of American citizens.
And do you think Kamala Harris has a challenge with black male voters?
The black male voters that I know are Harris voters, okay? However, I don't know what the disconnect is. It may be chauvinistic, it may be a woman. She's black and she's a woman, which has been a double-edged sword in my lifetime as an American.
Thank you.
I understand that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Cox-Powell. Back to you. Obviously, a lot of enthusiasm here as we wait for results to come in.
Well, Jennifer, brace yourself. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates during the course of the night. All told, Kamala Harris's defenders, in fact, that's something that's been echoed. They see a candidate who, despite an unfavorable national environment, has given her party a chance, a far better situation than Democrats actually found themselves in when Harris took over the nomination just a few short months ago. Joining us from Texas now, we have Huma Iqbal. Huma, what's happening in Texas at the moment? Is it all for Trump, or let's give Kamala Harris a chance sort of spin?
So, as we all know, that Texas has been a red state, but a lot has changed over the years, especially the last 2020, post-pandemic. We are seeing signs of blue coming in and creeping in, especially in places like Houston, Austin, San Antonio. A lot of immigrants, especially a lot of Indian population, resides in these places. I did speak to a few women, and I wish I could get them on air, but they did speak about reproductive rights and how they would vote for banning the abortion laws and changing them largely. And as we all know that. This is one of the biggest and hugest concern that everybody, especially women, face over here, especially in the state of Texas, that they have to travel out, they have to undergo a lot of issues, and just because of the views that the other parties have, the Republican parties have, with the orthodox Christian values of against abortion. So yes, I think Texas does want to see a change, but seems like it that as we're seeing in the results, that Trump is leading. So we don't know yet what is going to happen.
Well, thanks so much. We will revert you for regular updates. Let's also bring in Anand Ahuja, who joins us on NDTV at the moment. Anand is the Vice President for Indian Americans for Trump. Mr. Ahuja, are you excited?
I am always excited, and I am a very optimistic person.
On that note, let me ask you, what is it that Donald Trump brings to the table that you think Kamala Harris doesn't?
Okay, before I respond to that question, there are a couple of points which I observed when your other panelists were talking. First of all, the democracy issue was raised by, I'm not a pollster, but Brad was mentioning about the democracy. In fact, democracy is at stake is one of the biggest concerns of Republicans. If you see the way two impeachments of Trump took place and the false cases were framed against Donald Trump, Democrats never accepted Donald Trump as president of the United States. If you see the riots on January 21st, 2017, at the time of Donald Trump's inauguration, so basically democracy is at stake is actually one of the main concerns of Republicans. Republicans are the one who have been accusing that election is rigged in this particular country. So that's one thing. Secondly, you mentioned about blacks leaving Democratic Party and going towards Republican. There is another very major community, a vote bank, that is of Indians. Indians traditionally, they used to vote for Democrats, and now they have started shifting from Democratic Party to the Republican Party, and one of the reasons for that is
why have
one
Indians
of the
made that switch from the Democrat to the Republican aspect?
I'm coming to that. So one of the reasons blacks as well as Indians leaving Democratic Party and moving towards Republican Party is basically because of Donald Trump. If you see Donald Trump's policy, and that was your question to begin with. So Donald Trump brings on the table, number one, the issue in this country is immigration, legal immigration versus illegal immigration. So if you see that Biden's policies were open border, letting all illegal immigrants to come to this country, with the result, if you see, legal immigrants, basically, they had to feel that burden. Taxes have gone up because of unnecessary expenditure what we are incurring on illegal immigrants. Now the question is, when a person is on H-1B visa legally here, is to apply for green card, has to wait for 120 to 130 years. If I have to bring my brother as a US citizen to the United States, he has to wait for 30 years if he has to come through legal ways. However, the same brother, if I ask him to come illegally in the country, within 1 week, my brother can get work permit. So Donald Trump's policy is that he's not against immigrants. He is saying that it should be legal immigration. Especially,
but in that process, while advocating for legal immigration, he has also made some unsubstantiated claims that claim that an inflated number of immigrants came in illegally under Joe Biden, which is not true. There has been,
that's
yes,
fact.
an
That's fact. If you see today in United States, first of all, you compare illegal immigrants coming to United States to southern border during Trump's time, during Barack Obama's time, and illegal immigrants coming today through during Biden's time. I live in New York City. New York City is considered as a sanctuary city. If you come here and you see here how many illegal immigrants here, they get everything free. On whose money?
You're from New York, I must also...
As compared to that, give me 1 minute, okay?
Sure.
As compared to that, Trump's policy is that you basically give preference to STEM visa, that is science, technology, engineering, and math category people, professional. To the extent Trump has gone to say that these foreign graduates come here, they get degree from us, and they go to their home country and they become our competitors. Why not to give them green card at the time when we are giving them their diploma? So at the time of convocation, let's give them their green card also. So that's Trump's policy. And we Indians, we are basically very hardworking people. We pay our taxes in time. We are professionals. For us, Trump is basically what he's talking is for the benefit of we Indian. Secondly, if you see US-India relationship also, during Biden's time, Biden invited Modi to White House, but 1 day before that, he invites Khalistani leaders. So I personally believe that was insult to Modi. 1 day before Modi is coming to White House, the Khalistani leaders are invited to White House. If you see Pannu's case, if you see what has happened in Canada, now attack on Hindu temple. So all these policies, if you see, they are leftist policies, which are basically causing a big harm to Indo-US relationship also. So that's another reason
that the Trump campaign has been echoing time and again in the run-up to this election as well. I'd also like to rope in Emma Rangaswamy at the moment, who's the founder of Indiaspora. Sir, as things stand, the current state of play, Trump has already claimed that there's been massive cheating happening in Philadelphia just about an hour ago. Trump's team has already begun laying the groundwork for a potential challenge by preemptively accusing the Democrats of cheating. As things stand at the moment, is Donald Trump the right choice to lead the United States of America? What do you think?
I think let the people decide. I don't want to take sides. I'm an independent. I voted today myself in California. And my thing is let the people speak. So accusations have to be proven. So we'll have to wait. The attorney in Pennsylvania said, hey, no screwing around. And let's see if there's anything hanky-panky happens, that action will be taken. So evidence needs to be given on any of these accusations.
Right. In terms of the big issues that have emerged, We know immigration and economy have been the Republicans' sort of strong point. What do you think has really worked for Kamala Harris and her team? What are the moves, besides acting on personal freedoms like abortion rights, what do you think has really worked in her favor in terms of her strengths?
I think several things have stood out. One, obviously, is reproductive rights has been a big deal. Second, she seems to have energized the younger people because there's a definite age difference between the two candidates of 20 years. And that shows when you see these people on television or you meet them. So I think younger people are more energized, women are more energized, and the Indian community, even though the previous gentleman said some people have moved to the Republican side, what we are hearing is a good majority of the Indian Americans are still voting for Kamala Harris.
And I must also say that obviously the Indian Americans and the black vote bank cannot be treated as a monolith. But many political watchers are asserting that the argument that Kamala Harris has underperformed, it can be disputed. But, they have also highlighted how Donald Trump's entire rhetoric has been quite vile this time around. Lots of projections are out. I must run you through CNN's early projections at the moment. CNN has projected Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia going to Trump. As far as Harris is concerned, blue Vermont has been attributed to Harris. The Associated Press has called its first states, and there are no surprises so far. Kamala Harris has become the latest Democrat to actually win Vermont, which is a party stronghold, so no surprises there. Donald Trump has won Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia, all red states. The AP has not yet called swing states Georgia and South Carolina, but I must warn you, don't let the early results on election night fool you. Delayed absentee ballot counts in key swing states could tilt how the presidential race ultimately shakes out. So hang on, brace yourselves. We're going to be with you through this bumpy ride, slipping into a very short break for now.
NDTV proudly presents NDTV World Summit 2024, the India Century. I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inaugural session at the NDTV Summit outlined his vision for the India Century, driven by aspirational India.
हमारा प्रयास होगा भारत की सेंचुरी सिर्फ भारत की नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानवता की जीत की सेंचुरी बने.
The summit brought together prominent global leaders, highlighting India's pivotal role on the world stage.
Not just Indians trusting India's leadership, but the global South especially trusting India's leadership.
Permanent seat on the UN Security Council is something that should be India's right.
Canada is concerned, I think there are some very specific issues. I think a lot of people know that.
AI is going to be one of the most important, drivers.
It's a very exciting time for India, Indian cinema as well at a global level.
NDTV World Summit was more than just a conversation. It was a confluence of ideas poised to shape our global future.
NDTV proudly presents NDTV World Summit 2024, the India Century. I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inaugural session at the NDTV Summit outlined his vision for the India Century, driven by aspirational India.
हमारा प्रयास होगा भारत की सेंचुरी सिर्फ भारत की नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानवता की जीत की सेंचुरी बने.
The summit brought together prominent global leaders, highlighting India's pivotal role on the world stage.
Not just Indians trusting India's leadership, but the global South especially trusting India's leadership.
Canada is concerned, I think there are some very specific issues. I think a lot of people know that.
Permanent seat on the UN Security Council is something that should be India's right.
AI is going to be one of the most important, drivers.
It's a very exciting time for India, Indian cinema as well at a global level.
NDTV World Summit was more than just a conversation. It was a confluence of ideas poised to shape our global future.
From
interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
सर, सबसे ज़्यादा ब्लॉकबस्टर फिल्में डिलीवर करी अमिताभ बच्चन के साथ में, और आप लोगों की जोड़ी टूटने का एक असर अमिताभ बच्चन जी पे भी जरूर पड़ा होगा।
जरूर पड़ा होगा, उनको इस बात का अफसोस हुआ होगा कि
कभी बात हुई उनकी आपकी इस सिलसिले में?
नहीं, मैं अगर होता उनकी जगह और जैसे जावेद साहब गए या मैं गया तो उनको यही राय देता है कि मत छोड़ो, अच्छा खासा तुम्हारी एक जोड़ी है, वो काम कर रही है, अच्छा खासा चल रहा है, काय के लिए इसको तोड़ते हो। तो मैं होता तो ये करता।
तो फिर आप उनकी बात सुन लेते और उसका फिर जोड़ी वापस आ जाती?
नहीं, जोड़ी वापस नहीं आती, बस ज़रूरत ही नहीं काम करने की, ये तोड़ने की, करते रहो। तो अगर मैं होता तो ये राय देता, पता नहीं उन्होंने क्या राय दी है वो।
पर आपकी बात हुई कभी उनसे इस सिलसिले में?
नहीं, बात तो होती रहती है, मुलाकात हो जाती है तो। मगर वैसे वो ज़्यादा सख्ती से बात करते भी नहीं हैं,
अपने में रहने वाले,
अपने वो ज़्यादा किसी के करीब आते नहीं हैं, वो
अपने में ही रहने वाले रिजर्व आदमी। और बाकी जो इंडस्ट्री थी, जब आप लोग हटे, आप लोगों की जोड़ी हटी, तो बाकी इंडस्ट्री का क्या रिएक्शन था उस समय? उसके बाद
कुछ लोग तो खुश होते हैं कि अच्छा हुआ।
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Welcome back to our rolling coverage as America now counts. The voters have spoken. It has been a very heatedly contested elections. And now the counting has begun. Whether it is going to be Kamala Harris, history being made if she wins, a first woman president of the United States if the voters have given their verdict in favor of Kamala Harris, or whether it's going to be Donald Trump again. And remember, interestingly, it was Donald Trump last time who beat Hillary Clinton and made sure that Kamala Harris, if she wins, then becomes the first woman president. So both of them standing once again at the precipice of history. And in United States, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be a very long night. Remember, the results, all the counting is on, but the results may not be out. In fact, tonight itself, it's a process which is going to take some time, and we'll track every detail here on NDTV. So let's start with the headlines we are tracking at this moment. Early indications, Democrat lead battleground state of Pennsylvania. Republican candidate and former President Donald Trump says we will win Pennsylvania, we will win the whole deal. As we said, NDTV World is your destination, ladies and gentlemen, for the 360-degree view of the American elections. We, in fact, started when the voting started early morning. It's late evening, and my colleague Gauri Dwivedi is joining us from Washington, D.C. Gauri, what a fascinating day has this been. And it is going to be a very long night, early morning and long night. And even this may not ensure that tonight the results are going to be out completely, isn't it?
Absolutely, Ankit. And in fact, it's a great broadcast to have at a time when election results are coming in, even as in some places counting is still going on. So welcome to all the viewers to this very special broadcast. Ankit in the studio giving us all the minute-by-minute updates that are coming in on his laptop and computer, and of course me filling in with some of the other big picture developments that are happening. Ankit, extremely important as we talk that behind me, I am in fact at Howard University. Behind me is supposed to be the big watch party in the event that Kamala Harris wins this election. Historic in many ways for her, and also the messaging extremely important for her. And just when we were about to start this show, the DJ started, and the one thing he started, what he said when he started this, his tune was that if you want to create black history with me, join in. And that's exactly what this moment will end up being. If Kamala Harris does go on to win this election, she will create history in many ways. And behind me, you can see some of that action picking up, but still early. It's still early, of course, for any celebrations to begin in, as only early trends coming in right now. Ankit.
Early trends coming in at this moment, in fact, as Gauri was telling us. But Gauri, you know, like you said, it is, of course, history in making, whichever way you look at it. Last time it was Donald Trump who stopped Hillary Clinton from becoming the first woman US president. Kamala Harris standing at the same precipice. And the election, of course, from range of issues, economy to immigration. But, you know, the latest polls suggest democracy and the state of democracy remains at the top of the agenda for the voters.
Indeed, a third of the voters seem to have found democracy being a very important pivot in this election. And that's extremely important given the fact that Kamala Harris's campaign, which was effectively 100 days old, focused totally on democracy. Her entire campaign was about that if I don't come to power, then there's a fascist regime that comes to power. If Democrats are not voted in, then the whole campaign will be about, you know, the next administration will focus around sending 1 crore or 10 million immigrants back, even if it costs about $88 billion to American taxpayers. So that was essentially Kamala Harris's big campaign around democracy. And if a third of the voters found it appealing, it resonated with them, I think it's a success for her, given that she only had about 100 odd days to put that in place.
Right, Gauri, you know, I'm just going to come back to you, but let me also introduce our other colleagues, those who are tracking these developments in United States. Jennifer joins us from Florida, and we have Tony just joining us at this moment as well. Good evening, ladies. Before I come to you, in fact, let's just take a look very quickly at some of the projections that are coming in at this moment to the race of the White House. In fact, exit polls have also started coming in with, you know, exit polls also still predicting a very tight race. So for the NBC News, in fact, is predicting 48% for Kamala Harris and for 44% for Donald Trump. If you go across to, in fact, other exit polls like the CNN, 42% for Trump, 46% for Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, at this moment, in fact, a lot depends on what happens in the swing states. Jennifer, if I may come to you at this moment, Donald Trump is camped in Florida. What has been the reaction so far with the early indications which are coming in, specifically with Pennsylvania, when people are talking about, you know, leads coming in favor of the Democrats? How is the Republican camp reacting to that?
Well, Donald Trump is in Mar-a-Lago. J.D. Vance is there with him. There is a private watch party going on there. I understand that there have been a lot of cars going in and out of Mar-a-Lago today. I think a lot of advisors talking to Donald Trump about how to handle the rest of the evening. There is a large watch party set up at the Palm Beach Convention Center. Thousands of journalists when it went to Biden, gave him the presidency. So we know that these are early days yet. So far, what we've seen happen have been pretty reliable states going to the people, going to Trump and Harris as we believe they should have gone. But it is going to be, as you said, a very, very long night, and Kip, as we move forward, waiting to see how the messages resonated. You know, Gowrie was saying that Kamala's message was democracy. Trump's message was, I will fix it. I'll fix immigration. I'll fix the economy. I'll make America better again, as he has said over and over. And the question is, how many Americans are going to vote for that? How many Americans turned out for him? We know the turnout today here in Florida has been tremendous, and early turnout was tremendous. How that's all going to pan out across the country, well, we're going to find out in the next couple of hours. The polls closed here only half an hour ago. We still have a couple of time zones to go before the rest of the United States is finished.
That's right. But Tony, if I may come to you, Tony Waterman is joining us from Arizona. You know, while we are talking at this moment, the projection at this moment, in fact, if I can take at the leads, Donald Trump is projected to cross 270, while Kamala Harris somewhere around 260. Does that give Donald Trump and the entire Republican campaign a lot of heart that they are at this moment at the precipice of history? Like I said, he stopped first woman president with Hillary Clinton at that time, and now, of course, another woman president with Donald Trump. And if these projections come true, he's going to stop that again.
Yeah, I mean, we're still very, very early in counting the votes here in the United States. So any trajectory that Donald Trump may look on for the 270 is far from guaranteed. It will take just a couple of these swing states to swing in either direction for either of these candidates to win. Here in Arizona, we still have about 20 minutes left before the polls close. This is one of the 7 battleground states in this election cycle, and it is going to be very, very tight. So officials here are saying it could take nearly 2 weeks to count every single one of the ballots that have come in the early voting process, and then also today, and also those ballots that were requested weeks ago that people are just having time now to drop off. Part of the reason why this is going to take such a long time potentially is because the ballot here in Arizona is exceptionally long. We're talking 2 pages front and back that need to be filled out, all of these little circles by hand. That's going to take a long time. Also, officials saying there could be 500,000 early ballots that are brought in today, that their signatures are going to have to be verified, and that there are 5 days for any discrepancies to be resolved. So any notion that the voting is going to be done tonight, I don't think a lot of people believe that, particularly here in Arizona, but across the United States and in these swing states where we are expecting some razor-thin races here. So in Arizona, Biden won this state. It was his narrowest victory back in 2020. We're talking about fewer than 10,500 votes. So this is important that every single vote is counted when you're talking about margins that are potentially going to be that thin. So I think any notion that Donald Trump is on a clear path to victory right now, or Kamala Harris for that matter, is ill-advised at this point in the night.
Those numbers are premature, of course, because there are still some parts of America which are voting, even as some parts are, of course, counting. But a couple of important updates before we go back to our reporters. One is that Kamala Harris has won the very blue states of Delaware and New Jersey, as was expected. Nothing that is out of what the expectation was as far as her kitty. But the important part, of course, is Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, where voting has just ended. Their early trends are yet to come in. The second important bit, Arkansas, again, a state that was expected to go to the Republicans, has gone. Donald Trump has won that. And not since Bill Clinton won it that it actually swung. So these are all expected victories that are coming in, but it's important to keep reflecting that. But there are 2 important firsts that our viewers must know. One is that Andy Kim has become the first Korean American to be elected to Senate. And the second is Risa Blunt Rochester has become the first black female senator from Delaware. Delaware is an extremely blue state, but these are all firsts that we must keep telling our viewers as we keep waiting for those big numbers, isn't it, Ankit? What really happens to the states that will decide decide the next president, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Pennsylvania, or even North Carolina, that seems to be in play right now?
Right. So, I mean, of course, like, our reporters are also telling us, it is quite early at this moment to even indulge in any kind of conjecture. Of course, a lot of exit polls have started putting their projections out, but it will take, and I was just going through Twitter or X, in fact, and former President Obama has also put a post out saying that it is going to be a slow process. So be patient and be, in fact, the process is going to take a lot of time before, in fact, there can be any decisive verdict that can be, at this moment, be drawn on what is happening. We'll go across to Natasha also. She's joining us from Philadelphia in Pennsylvania to try and get a sense of this important swing state. Like Tony was talking about Arizona, Pennsylvania, of course, all eyes there as well. But before we do that, Gauri, very quickly, if I may come to you at this moment, right in the run-up to this election, we saw how divided and how polarized this entire campaign was. It was a very aggressive Donald Trump taking on Kamala Harris, both sides trading charges. It seemed there was nothing off the table. Now, after almost the voting is done across the United States, how is the mood? Have the tempers come down? Are people now, in fact, what are they looking forward to once election is over? Because there is a real worry that there could still be some sort of uncertainty even when the results start coming in, given the history, what happened last time.
Indeed, of course, Ankit, and we'll put that, in fact, to our guests as well, who will be joining us. In terms of what happens next, whether this vitriolic political climate that many say is actually very new for America, will that subside, or will this really start a new wave of political landscape being very fractured, or some would even say broken, simply because the two sides of the aisle refuse to see eye to eye on any major issue, whether it is immigration, whether it is economy, whether it's abortion, any of the major issues. There is just no way that any consensus can happen. And that's something that a lot of experts going into these results also said, that irrespective of who comes to power, with a very broken Congress, what may happen is that the next president, instead of wasting time in trying to get some sort of a consensus, will just have to exercise powers to issue a lot more executive orders. That doesn't bode well for the world's oldest democracy, but that just tells you the broken political landscape that exists right now in America, only part of which is likely to be healed after these results that come in, hopefully later in the night, and not spill over till tomorrow.
Right. Let's also, in fact, introduce Chris, our colleague who's joining us from Michigan at this moment. Chris, coming to you at this moment, just give our viewers a sense of what are the projections, early projections as far as Michigan is concerned. A lot of Arab Muslims and progressive Americans were divided on how to vote as they face a difficult choice. So at this moment, after the voting has ended, what are some early projections? What is the chatter around?
Yeah, we're going to have to see what the early projections are. I spent the morning in Dearborn, which is home to the first Arab American majority city in the U.S. as of 2023. And a lot of the voters I spoke to on the ground didn't even want to talk on camera, but they are so emotional and so charged about the war in Gaza and what's happening in the Middle East, because a lot of them have family members there, and they just said that they could not vote for any candidate that would continue the killing. So whether they voted for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, we'll have to wait and see how it turns out in the numbers. But I can tell you that right here in Detroit, where I am, and the vote counting is actually taking place across the street from me at the convention center. So if a major city like Detroit gets its count done tonight, we could hopefully see the results that come in from Michigan. Now, I can tell you that Kamala Harris is outperforming Joe Biden in the affluent county of Oakland, which is just north of Detroit. So she's doing better than Biden did in 2020 in the early returns. And that's really the key for Kamala Harris in Michigan, she has to run up the margins in the urban areas and the suburbs, the reliably blue areas of the state, because Donald Trump is going to win overwhelmingly in the rural counties that have gone red since his election in 2016.
Right. Let's also bring in Natasha Aswani, our colleague who's joining us from the very important battleground state of Pennsylvania. Natasha, you know, all eyes, of course, would be on Pennsylvania. It's a must-win state for Kamala Harris. There is no road to White House for her. All right, let's quickly go across to Gauri first. She has an important update at this moment.
No, actually, Ankit, I wanted to ask Chris this question, which is that when he says that the war is set to have an impact on the result, the question I want to ask Chris is that is it going to lead to a lot of undecided voters, in which case whom does it benefit, or is it leading to Trump actually heading and making great inroads into a vote bank which was traditionally very, not in favor of the Republican Party and most certainly not Trump?
I think we've lost Chris, but we'll go across to him, and Gauri will take that question once again, because that's a very important point that you made, because at least with what is happening in Gaza, we saw so much protest taking place in the United States, people not very happy with the Biden administration's handling as far as that war is concerned. How much has that impacted the choice for specifically for the Arabs, those who are there, the Muslims, those who are there, especially in a state or in a city like Michigan? But let me very quickly go across back to Natasha. She is in Pennsylvania. Natasha, all eyes on Pennsylvania. As I was saying earlier, there is no road for Kamala Harris to White House, which excludes Pennsylvania. How is it looking at this moment? What are the early trends suggesting?
Well, we are right now at a young Republican watch party in the heart of Philadelphia, one of Pennsylvania's largest cities. And we're watching a group of young Republicans and older Republicans watch the race on Fox Network, and we're joined by someone who's lived in Philadelphia for a very long time. How do you think it's looking for your candidate, Donald Trump?
Donald Trump will make this country better than it ever will be. He'll save our country. He must win, or this country's over.
But do you think he has a chance of winning Pennsylvania, which in the past has also gone to Joe Biden in the previous election cycle?
Well, I think he has a chance. If it ain't rigged again, he should win.
So far, the allegations of rigging have come out to be false. So, we don't know whether rigging has actually happened in Pennsylvania, but you're still hoping for your candidate.
Yeah, wait, what did you say? I couldn't hear you.
No worries. So that was our first Trump supporter. We're also going to go across to someone else to get his perspective. And we're joined by a young Republican member. You've been a member of the Young Republican Party since you were in high school.
Yeah, I've been a young Republican pretty much for my whole entire life. But I really started getting involved in politics in 2016. Right before 2016, 2015, just due to the change in politics with an outsider like Donald Trump.
Young Republicans and Republicans are still a minority in Philadelphia and in this area. How are you making inroads, and why do you think Donald Trump does have a chance in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, that's a great question. Philadelphia is a deep blue city. Pennsylvania is a blue state, but over the last 4 to 8 years, we have seen more higher enthusiasm for the Republican Party across Pennsylvania here in Philadelphia. And I think the big thing is that the reason why there's more Republicans there's more voters going to the Republican Party is because the Republican Party has now transitioned to be the working class party. There's more young people, there's more diversity within the party. It's not the old white men class, which it was back in the Bush era. And just that alone sets the difference for why more people want to come and join the Republican Party.
And yet, often when Donald Trump speaks, he puts off immigrants, he puts off women, he puts off minorities because of the language that he uses, often very abrasive language. How do you respond to that as a young man yourself?
Yeah, I would say the big thing with him is that the reason why he's so appealing to voters is that he speaks like like the average American when it comes to the dinner table. He is not politically correct. He says it how it is. Yes, he might go too far on certain things, but he's not politically correct. And I think that's why there has been such a high enthusiasm, especially for younger people. Like people in my age group, we're just used to the status quo with politicians and everything. A lot of us who have older siblings or young parents and everything, we see the reality of what the status quo has done here in America, and that's why I think Donald Trump is becoming more appealing to the younger population, because we just want change and everything. And yes, change might be looked down upon for folks that are not in the status quo, but that's just the reality.
So there we are with the young Republican talking about the change that he wants to see in this country. What we are hearing from a lot of people is that change is also an economic change. A lot of people are watching inflation. A lot of young men believe they can't really actually proceed with like buying a house or really going on to build a family because there's not enough economic support. Whether or not Donald Trump is better on that or Kamala Harris remains to be seen, but either which way, Pennsylvania remains a big prize, and it's too early in the night to say which way it'll go.
Absolutely. Which way Pennsylvania will go is really a million-dollar question. And Alistair, before I come to you, you are in Virginia at a very important watch party. There are a lot of Indian Americans there and an important seat. Let me quickly tell our viewers that the states that Kamala Harris has won so far, claimed so far, Illinois, Delaware, New Jersey, Vermont, Maryland, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all blue states on expected lines. The states that Donald Trump has won so far: Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Mississippi. Again, on expected lines. Nothing so far that is out of what was expected and predicted. The next, of course, remains to be seen which way the swing states go. Let me now get in Alistair to tell us what's the mood like, in fact, at a very important watch party. Lots of Indian Americans there. There are some very important names that are also in the play. Virginia is as blue as it gets, Alistair, but tell us what's really the mood like in that watch party, and what are Indian Americans really expecting in this election?
So, Gauri, I'm at a watch party for an Indian American who might become the first, and lots of supporters here, for Suhas Subramaniam. He is poised to become the first U.S. congressman from the East Coast. So these are some of his supporters here, all Democratic. They've been watching the results coming in. We've got a big screen up as well. So we're going to try and get some kind of idea on what they feel about what's happened so far. So this is Aiden. Aiden, some of those results coming in predictable, but are you nervous?
I am a little nervous, but I think it's going to mirror what happened in 2020, where a lot of the early votes were going to skew to the Republican side and the Republican ticket, what Bernie Sanders called the red mirage. And then I think when those mail-in votes come in, it's going to turn more towards Harris. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
All right, we have Zoe here, and we also have Melina. They have voted for the first time in this election cycle, both studying political science and government. Zoe, Aiden here, a bit concerned about some of the results coming in. We've also heard that the West Virginia, one of the Senate seats there, flipping from Democrat to Republican. How do you feel?
Overall, nationally, I feel pretty confident still. It's really great to be in this bubble here with Suhas for Virginia. But with West Virginia, of course, there's some concerns seeing Republicans flip the seat, but with Joe Manchin retiring, I think we all kind of saw that coming, and hopefully we can make up some ground in other states where the polls are still yet to close.
Okay, you're seeing it on the brighter side of things, at least for now. Zoe, what about you? You've voted for the first time. What was it? What were the issues, or that one key issue that really moved you? Because the exit poll that has just come out talks about how democracy has been on the top of the list, but so far we've been hearing about the economy. So to me, at least, that was somewhat of a surprise. Yes, democracy was in the mix, but democracy was up there for people. What was it for you, though?
Definitely for me was the immigration topic. Coming from immigrant parents, I basically represent my parents in the political world. I inform them, and I also inform everyone else, especially about immigration. I have many immigrant friends who are now, worried about this election. Everyone's pretty nervous about the election, but yeah.
And of course, you're here supporting Suhas Subramaniam, likely to become the first Indian American US congressman from the East Coast. The Economist magazine giving him an award, saying that he has a chance of winning this 98 of 100 times. So pretty high there. How do you feel about that with Suhas coming into fray now?
I think Suhas is going to be a phenomenal congressman. I think taking over for Jennifer Wexton, he's the perfect guy to pass the torch off to. He was great for Virginians at the state level, so he's going to be great at the federal level as well.
All right, so we're going to leave it there for you guys. Thank you so much. Very patriotic with your flags. Woo, yes, indeed. Giving it back to you, Gauri, at Howard University.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so as we've been saying, you'll get the best window seat to whatever is happening in the United States elections here on NDTV World. Our colleagues spread all across. In fact, I was just in news coming in that Donald Trump has won Florida, his home state, so it's expected that he will win a red state. But let's just take an overall picture at this moment, ladies and gentlemen. Where do we stand? It might take a few days before every vote is counted in United States, but where do we stand at this moment? 538, of course, that's the Electoral College, and out of that you need 270 to win the race to White House. At this moment, Donald Trump has secured 101 Electoral College. If you want to understand it simply, that these are the number of seats that Donald Trump has won, and Kamala Harris at 71. The blues that you see at this moment on your screen, that represents the Democrats, Kamala Harris. The reds, of course, is Donald Trump. So at this moment, 172 out of 538. What are the chances of winning for both these candidates? Let's very quickly take a look at that. At this moment, Donald Trump's chances of winning with what has happened so far, 172, and the remaining number of seats. If this projection continues, if this speed in fact continues, if the conversion rate for Donald Trump continues, he has 54% chance of winning the 2024 presidential election, while Kamala Harris at this moment with 71 already won by her. Vice President Kamala Harris stands at 46%. So it will be, as I said, though it is just the chances of winning according to what has happened so far and the number of seats which are left. So in no way at this moment, this is a decisive indication, but it just gives you a sense of where, or at least which way is this election heading. But then, as we have been talking about, it will all boil down to some very crucial swing states, 7 of them, and we'll keep getting the updates. Time for us to slip into a very quick break. We are coming back. Stay tuned.
NDTV proudly presents NDTV World Summit 2024, the India Century. I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inaugural session at the NDTV Summit outlined his vision for the India Century, driven by aspirational India.
हमारा प्रयास होगा भारत की सेंचुरी सिर्फ भारत की नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानवता की जीत की सेंचुरी बने.
The summit brought together prominent global leaders, highlighting India's pivotal role on the world stage.
Not just Indians trusting India's leadership, but the global South especially trusting India's leadership.
Permanent seat on the UN Security Council is something that should be India's right.
Canada is concerned, I think there are some very specific issues. I think a lot of people know that.
AI is going to be one of the most important, drivers.
It's a very exciting time for India, Indian cinema as well at a global level.
NDTV World Summit was more than just a conversation. It was a confluence of ideas poised to shape our global future.
NDTV proudly presents NDTV World Summit 2024, the India Century. I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inaugural session at the NDTV Summit outlined his vision for the India Century, driven by aspirational India.
हमारा प्रयास होगा भारत की सेंचुरी सिर्फ भारत की नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानवता की जीत की सेंचुरी बनी।
The summit brought together prominent global leaders, highlighting India's pivotal role on the world stage.
Not just Indians trusting India's leadership, but the global South especially trusting India's leadership.
Canada is concerned, I think there are some very specific issues. I think a lot of people know that.
Permanent seat on the UN Security Council is something that should be India's right.
AI is going to be one of the most important, drivers.
It's a very exciting time for India, Indian cinema as well at a global level.
NDTV World Summit was more than just a conversation. It was a confluence of ideas poised to shape our global future.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Welcome back. You're watching our rolling coverage of US election. Counting is underway, and as we speak, the latest update that's coming from a very crucial state, that's Georgia, where Donald Trump is leading Kamala Harris by 12%. Georgia is extremely crucial, a state that Joe Biden flipped by a very narrow margin. If Donald Trump is able to retain and bring it back into the Republican fold, it brightens his chances. Over the course of next 30 minutes, we'll cover the latest updates in the US election. Let's now at least, Ankit, let me hand it back to you in the studio for headlines at this hour.
Thanks, Gauri. Let's very quickly take a look at the top headlines at this hour. Early poll forecast shows Trump crossing 270. Donald Trump leads with 101 electoral votes. Kamala Harris leads in 71 electoral votes. CNN projection, Trump win Arkansas. CNN is projecting that former president will win Arkansas. PA voting site searched by dogs after a bomb threat. A bomb threat has been prompted by the evacuation of the government building in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Democrats lead in red state of Kansas. Trouble for Donald Trump in the red state. As Gauri was saying, this is the live and continuous coverage of the elections in United States. The votes have been casted and now it's time for the counting. It is a long-drawn process. It's not likely that the results will possibly be very, very clear by the end of the night. But exciting time for the United States, one of the most consequential elections in the recent history. Gauri continues to be with us. Let me also introduce our other guests, those who are joining us this morning. In fact, this evening in United States, we have Rajiv Puri, Michigan State Representative. He's a Democrat who's joining us at this moment. We also have Daniel J. Milson. He is a political strategist, associate professor at the Penn State University. Thank you so much for being with us. Also, Alex, who's joining us at this moment. He's a pollster, just to get a sense of what is happening, to try and make sense of these numbers. Alex, let me start with you first before, in fact, I go further. Very early projections at this moment. In these projections, leads for Donald Trump. What are most polls suggesting the way forward as far as United States elections are concerned?
So there haven't really been any surprises tonight so far in the major states, with the exception of, I think, the margins in Florida. Trump is leading at this point. Florida's been called. It's 92% reporting, but he's leading by more than 1 million votes. There were 2 ballot initiatives that most people thought would win on marijuana and abortion, and the marijuana one has been defeated. Now, the abortion one looks like it will go down to defeat as well. So that margin is a surprise. Outside of that, North Carolina is pretty narrow. It's 38% reporting, 52-48. Georgia, Trump is ahead by about 5 points right now. So that we're just updating it even as we speak. But the real action is in the blue wall states. Pennsylvania is counting very, very slowly. Michigan, we only have 7 or 10% reporting, and so it's hard to know what's going to happen there. And in Wisconsin, I'm still waiting for results too. I'm very curious and interested to see what happens there, because I think that Donald Trump has a real chance of taking Wisconsin. Pennsylvania, we'll have to wait and see.
Right, so it will take some time, as I said before. In fact, we do get the real big picture of what's happening as far as these elections are concerned. These are early trends which are coming in. But Rajiv Puri, let me ask you, and start by asking about Michigan itself. Is this state of worry as far as the Democrats are concerned, given the kind of population mix that you have, a lot of Arabs, a lot of Muslims, and we have seen how they have been quite opposed or quite angry with what was happening with the Gaza-Israel conflict, in fact, going on with the current administration. Is that rubbing off on the election results as well?
Yeah, I think Michigan's a fascinating case study for the country. I think it's far more diverse than a lot of national pundits give it credit for. There's certainly been a lot of nuance in the political conversations of the state of Michigan, but I do think a coalition is coming together to elect Vice President Kamala Harris as president here in Michigan. You know, there's been roughly about $800 million worth of political spend in Michigan, and so there's been no shortage of conversations. I myself have knocked thousands of doors and talked to many voters. The reproductive rights issue here played a huge role in electing Democrats across statewide in 2022. You are seeing women fearful of a national abortion ban coming out in droves. For the first election in Michigan, we've actually had a very robust early voting period here. We've had 3.4 million Michiganders already vote before today even started. And looking at those returns, those skewed, again, very Democratic. And election day turnout is strong, and you are seeing the Republicans make up some ground on election day. But, we do anticipate that there being too much gravity for the Republicans to make up today.
This was the night that we decided to run.
Daniel, I want to ask you about Georgia, a state where, as we speak, Donald Trump has a slim but an important 12% lead over Kamala Harris, and many believe that this election could actually be decided, apart from Pennsylvania, in Georgia. How do you see the state right now and the possibility of it going the Trump way?
Gauri, would you repeat who that question is for?
Professor Daniel, is my voice reaching you, sir? This is Gauri from... This was for Professor Daniel. I was asking that Georgia seems to be giving a slim lead to Donald Trump. What are the odds that this could really decide the election?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's going to depend on, as was mentioned earlier, how some of these blue wall states are going to go. Whether a state like Georgia will end up being a deciding state in the election. And we've been talking a lot about Pennsylvania across the span of this election. And yeah, the fact that it's not impossible for either candidate to win if they don't win Pennsylvania, but it becomes much harder. And of course, states like Georgia then become more important for making that happen.
Right. Ankit, another very important state is Iowa, where the voting has just ended, and over the weekend there was a very, an authority, in fact, in terms of pollsters who predicted that it may actually go to Kamala Harris. It could probably be the biggest upset of this election, and maybe we can get Matt to respond to the fact that what happens if Iowa actually goes to Kamala Harris.
Right. Let's, in fact, take that to Alex, who's with us at this moment. Alex, like Gaur, my colleague, was asking about Iowa. How does that change the equation if that, in fact, turns blue, if Kamala Harris wins that? And also talk to our viewers about the voter turnout. That is also being seen as one of the most crucial factors in this election. Right till the end, there were a lot of people voting, waiting in the voting lines before the poll ended.
Sure. So to the Iowa question, I don't expect Iowa to go for Kamala Harris. There was a poll by a very prominent and very well-respected pollster, Ann Seltzer, that had Kamala Harris up 3 or 4 points. That would be a tremendous upset. She does have a history of predicting tremendous upsets along those lines. I don't expect that to happen here. If it does, it means that we have a very different electorate than pollsters anticipated going into tonight. And based on the results that we're seeing so far, there's a lot of good news for Republicans, pretty much across the board. I don't see that same set of good news for Democrats. And to me, that cuts against Iowa going for Harris. That could change. It's a unique state. It has individual characteristics there, but I don't expect it to. Right. So to the other question for voter turnout, again, I point to Florida. Florida is unique in its own ways too. It has a very powerful party there. It's a very effective Republican Party, and so they have a powerful turnout machine. But I'm hearing a lot of enthusiasm from Democrats about high turnout in Philadelphia. I'm waiting to see if that's borne out in the data. It hasn't been so far, but I think that the Harris campaign in particular is really waiting to see what happens there.
Indeed. Professor Daniel, then let me ask you that as things stand right now, there has been record turnout and record voting that has taken place, particularly in Pennsylvania. Given the importance of that state, given the fact that there is record voting, how do you read that in terms of where things stand right now and the odds right now between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think if we see another very high turnout election like we did in 2020, I think that probably bodes well for Harris, although, again, it's going to depend really on where that turnout is. Philadelphia was just mentioned. Turning out Philadelphia has, for a long time, been crucial for Democrats winning the state, winning statewide races, and especially in the last 2 elections being decided very narrowly in the Commonwealth. And we're expecting that will probably be the case again. The big turnout in the southeastern part of the state is going to be really important for Harris being able to win.
Right. So, like we've been talking about certain, factors that could, in fact, swing the vote. But let me ask you this, Rajiv. Rajiv, at this moment, the way things are going, and we saw some exit polls as well, where the voters' concern, top concern, was democracy, the state of the democracy in United States. That has also been one of the main themes as far as Kamala Harris is concerned, or the Democrats are concerned. People have accused the Democrats of creating that atmosphere of fear that democracy will finish if Donald Trump comes back. Does that in any way enthuse the Democrats if that is the top issue in the voters' mind?
Absolutely. I think, I think between the 2 choices, if a voter was presented, I think there's some pretty significant polling that shows that voters of all persuasions do trust Democrats on the issue of democracy. But we are kind of very early into the night. I'm kind of reminded of 2020 when a lot of the early returns kind of looked one way, but it's very important that we don't kind of draw major conclusions from partial county results, because you can kind of argue in both ways still, and so I do think overall a high voter turnout would benefit the Democratic Party, but obviously it does depend on who's turning out, and at this point, a lot of the votes are cast, and we are in the process of counting. But I do urge caution before we kind of make overarching claims.
Right. As we speak, update coming in, Ankit, that Donald Trump has won the state of Texas. Again, at the cost of repeating, it is all on expected lines. None of this is something that pollsters had not factored in. But I guess the one thing that I would like to ask the panelists, and in fact Mr. Puri particularly, is that the one demographic that Kamala Harris has consistently reached out to in the last 2 months has been the gender vote, the woman vote, so to say. How crucial is that for Kamala Harris to reach the 270 mark? Mr. Puri.
I think it's essential. I think it's going to be very important that the vice president is able to capture a significant portion of traditional Republican women who are going to cross over, getting women of all ages, all persuasions out to vote. I think that's something that there is some anecdotal evidence that is happening, but again, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but that is an important path to victory for the vice president.
Right, Professor, Daniel, if I may ask you this, that before even the voting started in the United States, a record number of people had already voted. More than 75 million people had casted their votes. This is possibly unprecedented. How is that being seen, at least with early trends, as far as this election is concerned?
Yeah, so I can speak probably more to Pennsylvania than I can to some of the other states. Sure. But in Pennsylvania, that early voting, so we have early mail balloting, not early in-person voting, but that has typically been disproportionately Democrat in those votes. It's contributed to what some have called this kind of red mirage and blue shift that happens on election night, that happened in 2020. Where in the in-person voting on election day, you have a lot more Republicans that are voting, and then it takes the state a while to count those mail ballots for a couple of reasons. And then as those mail ballots get counted, you see sort of a shift. There's actually been less mail balloting this time around. There's about 2.6 mail ballots cast last time in Pennsylvania. This time it's looking like it'll be about 2 million. Which is still very significant, and of course significant for, again, particularly Harris. But we're also, the Republicans, not just in Pennsylvania, but in other states, have been promoting mail balloting to try to get more of their voters out, mail and also early in person, after sort of the criticisms of mail balloting from former President Trump in 2020. Kind of cooled those voters to using that. The Republican Party's been trying to get them out. So I'm really curious to see if those margins between the Republicans and Democrats using early voting decline and in this election, and then what that might mean for the final outcome.
Right. Alex, just going through what some of the exit polls are suggesting, as I was asking earlier as well, among the various topics is, and I'm just following up with what Gauri had asked Mr. Puri as well. Do you see any sort of, is there some data or evidence, early evidence at this moment that the women voter, even in Republican states, are turning to Vice President Harris because of the reproductive rights, because that is also among the top priorities. At least that's what the exit poll issues shows.
I do think there's evidence of that in polling that came out before Election Day now, in exit polling as well. I think if the electorate is more female, then that certainly benefits Kamala Harris. There's a bigger gender gap in U.S. politics now than at any other time that I remember, but men are turning out as well. My expectation is that 54% of the electorate will be women. But some of the returns that I'm seeing to try and triangulate that in Virginia, for instance, suggest that things are a lot tighter, and that may mean that there's something closer to parity between the genders, because Donald Trump will very likely still lose Virginia, but he's trailing by about 25,000 votes right now. Kamala Harris should be winning that state by 8 points. And it's a surprise to me that it is as close as it is. That's a heavily suburban state, and suburban women, particularly suburban white women, are exactly that. group that is voting against Donald Trump because they don't like the way that he talks, and they want to return to an era of decorum in our politics that we've departed from with Trump in it. And so I don't see convincing evidence right now that Kamala Harris is getting everything that she needs from women turning out and supporting her.
Indeed, that's what some polls also seem to suggest, that it's not so easy for Kamala as far as the gender vote is concerned. In fact, as we wrap this up, let me just quickly tell our viewers the latest update. Donald Trump has won, apart from Texas, 16 other states, and for Kamala Harris, that figure stands at 9, including the very crucial but expected state of New York, which is as blue as it gets. Ohio and Louisiana are the latest 2 states that Trump has added to his kitty. And before I hand it back to you, Ankit, the one character that we must speak more about in this election is, in fact, Elon Musk, the world's richest man, heavily invested in this election. And as we speak, he's put out a latest update on X saying that he's not going to finish his political career, or in fact political interests, after this election tonight. He's going to continue with the midterms and successive elections. Are we going to see now Elon Musk, the politician, a side story but equally important in this election? And I hand it back to you, Ankit, in the studios to take this forward.
Well, that's quite interesting. It's almost building up as if after Donald Trump, it's going to be Elon Musk, possibly looking to take over the reins of the Republicans. But that's far-fetched at this moment, but very, very invested in this election. Gauri, thank you, gentlemen, for speaking to us at this moment. But just take a look at how things are changing very, very quickly. Though, as I said, it's going to be a long night, and possibly not just tonight. It will take some more time before the final result comes out. But what you are seeing is the chances of winning, the purse chances of winning at this moment earlier have gone up for Donald Trump to 65%. This is based on the victories that we are seeing as far as Donald Trump is concerned so far in various states. So far in United States, no surprises there. Red is turning red, blue is turning blue. But what happens to the crucial 7 swing states is going to decide this election for the next president of United States. So we are slipping into a very short break, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. Our coverage continues.
NDTV proudly presents NDTV World Summit 2024, the India Century. I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inaugural session at the NDTV Summit outlined his vision for the India Century, driven by aspirational India.
हमारा प्रयास होगा भारत की सेंचुरी सिर्फ भारत की नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानवता की जीत की सेंचुरी बने.
The summit brought together prominent global leaders, highlighting India's pivotal role on the world stage.
Not just Indians trusting India's leadership, but the global South especially trusting India's leadership.
Permanent seat on the UN Security Council is something that should be India's right.
Canada is concerned, I think there are some very specific issues. I think a lot of people know that.
AI is going to be one of the most important, drivers.
It's a very exciting time for India, Indian cinema as well at a global level.
NDTV World Summit was more than just a conversation. It was a confluence of ideas poised to shape our global future.
NDTV proudly presents NDTV World Summit 2024, the India Century. I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inaugural session at the NDTV Summit outlined his vision for the India Century, driven by aspirational India.
हमारा प्रयास होगा भारत की सेंचुरी सिर्फ भारत की नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानवता की जीत की सेंचुरी बने.
The summit brought together prominent global leaders, highlighting India's pivotal role on the world stage.
Not just Indians trusting India's leadership, but the global South especially trusting India's leadership.
Canada is concerned, I think there are some very specific issues. I think a lot of people know that.
Permanent seat on the UN Security Council is something that should be India's right.
AI is going to be one of the most important, drivers.
It's a very exciting time for India, Indian cinema as well at a global level.
NDTV World Summit was more than just a conversation. It was a confluence of ideas poised to shape our global future.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
अपने टैलेंट के दम पे तमाम दरवाजे खोले। किसी बड़े बाप की औलाद नहीं था वो आदमी, उसकी सक्सेस से तो तमाम लोगों को जो इंस्पिरेशन मिलती है वो नेक्स्ट लेवल है।
सर वो तो है, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ रुकावट तो बहुत थी, क्योंकि ये लड़का जिस रफ्तार से आगे जा रहा था बहुत तो रुकावट तो आएगी। तो रुकावट ऐसे आई कि हीरोइन को बोल दिया जाता था कि इसके साथ काम मत करो, तो करते भी नहीं थे। फिर किसी भी तरह कैसे भी कोई भी फिल्म मिल जाए, मैं बोला नहीं करना कि मेरे दिल में को ऐसे हारूंगा तो लड़ के हारूंगा, ऐसे नहीं हारूंगा मैं। तो वो एक बात तो थी। तो दोपहर वही जो काले रंग वाली बात है ना, वही बात मुझे बहुत दिमाग बहुत रोता था, बहुत ये सचमुच के बहुत रोता था कि भगवान ये कैसे तोड़ूँ मैं, कैसे हो सकता है। फिर एक दिन दिमाग में आया मैं तो डांस कर सकता हूँ, है ना। मैं डिस्को डांसर के पहले की बात कर रहा हूँ ये जो। तो मैंने कहा कि ऐसा मैं डांस करूँगा, पैरों से डांस करूँगा, हाथ से नहीं, पैरों से डांस करूँगा। लोग मेरी कलर को ना देखें, मेरे पैरों को देखें। और इसीलिए मेरे सारे डांस देखे कि मैंने पैरों के ऊपर ज़्यादा जोर दिया है, और वही हुआ। लोग मेरे पैर को देखने लगे, मेरे रंग को भूल गया, और मैं हो गया सेक्सी डस्की बंगाली बाबू।
तो वो आपने जो है ये डिसाइड कर लिया कि डांस देखेगी दुनिया, रंग नहीं देखेगी।
यस।
ये बताइए मुझे कि जो हीरोइनों की बात आपने अभी करी कि कोई काम करने के लिए उनको मना कर देते थे, किस हीरोइन ने तोड़ा ये?
नहीं, ये एक्चुअली जिना तमान जी ने मेरे को सबसे ज़्यादा मदद की, क्योंकि 20 साहब एक पिक्चर बना रहे थे। उन्होंने तय कर लिया भाई मैं मिठू नहीं मेरा हीरो है। तो वो गए जीनत जी के पास, जीनत जी को बोला जीनत देखो एक लड़का है, आई थिंक ही इज़ वेरी गुड एक्सट्रीमली। तो जीनत जी ने देखे बोला अरे ये तो इज़ अ वेरी हैंडसम लुकिंग बॉय एंड अच्छा काम करता है, डांस करता है, आई विल वर्क। वो जो उन्होंने तोड़ा, उसके बाद से सब बड़ी हीरोइनें साइन करने लग गए।
फिर आप मेन स्ट्रीम हो गए।
हाँ, तो इसलिए आई हैव बीन एवर ग्रेटफुल टू जीनत जी फॉर एवर।
तो एक फिल्म करिए जीनत अमान जी के साथ में अब?
हाँ बहुत सारी।
अब करिए?
अब नहीं।
अब करिए?
हाँ।
थिंक अबाउट।
हाँ आएगा तो क्यों नहीं, ज़रूर करेंगे।
So why don't you tell Zinat Aman?
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
This is funny. If you look across it, like different sides of the political. It's a bit strange. Good morning and welcome. Well, it is a huge day for the United States, I dare say for the entire world. Parmeshwar has been tracking all of the US election leads and results coming in for the last little while. Let me join her. Well, the US presidential election of 2024 remains intensely contested between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Early results indicate a tight race, with Trump holding a lead, a slim one but a substantive one, in key battleground states like Florida and Kentucky. It's at this stage we can say that Florida likely going to Trump. Nationally, polls suggest a marginal edge for Harris, but the race is too close to call with less than a 1% lead. In swing states, Trump seems to have a slight advantage, which could be pivotal in deciding the Electoral College votes. Meanwhile, there's been considerable discussion on voter turnout and election integrity, with authorities urging patience as votes. And I think, Parmeshwar, this is important. We need to be patient, because these are very, very early days. It's going by and large along predicted lines. And I think the point that's often forgotten is that America has different time zones. People are sleeping, others may be awake. Polling booths closed at different times, and therefore results start coming out at different times as well. So while there may be trends, and we'll bring you some of those trends, it is important to remember that there is an integrity in the US election process that must be respected. Authorities urging patience as votes, especially from mail-in ballots, are still being counted. Remember, they don't have EVMs. We have the benefit of knowing by what 10:30